Wow!
Oh, yeah.
I'm here for the first time today. What a show!
I'm working late because I'm a streamer.
Nice.
Jimmy's great, but I'm much meaner.
You got it. You fucking starting off early with Matt Dillahunty bringing the heat. How are you, my friend?
I'll do it for you. I made a post this morning. Hello, everybody. By the way, I'm Matt. Welcome to the Sunday Show After Dark. I'm not just quoting Sabrina Carpenter. We're hoping to. We've got a number of phone calls and people on the line. This is a call-in show. Ostensibly, the Sunday shows tend to generally be about religion. And while I know that we will always prioritize these calls, and we are definitely interested in religion, I don't know if any of you people know this, but not only does Jimmy Snow have a podcast, and we also have this limited edition shirt available just till midnight. So if you really want to shuck the FUD up, there's your shirt thing right there. I believe it's over at Line Merch and all those other things that you can do to support the show.
What a bizarre meme.
To all of that, the United States is having an election on Tuesday to determine if this is going to be the series finale or the season finale.
Yeah, that's it. So like theist calls always prioritized, but also Trump calls. If you are voting for Donald Trump or voting third party, call in and tell us why, and we will help to free you up from these notions that this is a good idea. I'm grown man Forrest Valkai. I have been streaming for the past 5 hours. I'm drinking a Capri Sun. I'm ready to start the show whenever you are.
Sweetness. I had somebody kind of mildly, it wasn't a problem, but come after me on Twitter. I was just having a quick, little conversation with Than and whoever else over on his page, and somebody's like, "Oh, somebody should get Matt to look at the blog post that I just wrote about him." And here we are in October of 2024, and someone's writing a blog post about me, where when I read the first 3 or 4 sentences, I was done and didn't need to do. It is all about I'm defining atheism wrong, and atheism is only the active rejection of the God claim, which, by the way, I actively reject the God claim, which is still not the same as I am convinced there is no God. I'm rejecting that the claim is worth accepting. So even under that definition of rejecting, I'm still there. And then they went on to suggest that my position is that the God concept is meaningless. Now, and he also mentioned that I was expressing some kind of certainty for this. Now, nobody who's actually paid attention to anything that I've said over the last 20 years that I've been doing this can think that I asserted anything with absolute certainty, since my number one thing over and over again when it comes to certainty is that I'm not convinced absolute certainty is possible at all. And so I don't make claims about, from the standpoint of absolute certainty, but also this notion that, Matt's using this inappropriate definition of atheism. No, I'm sorry, Christian, you don't get to tell me what atheism means. I'm using it in a way that tons of other people do. And so there's soft atheism and hard atheism. But more than that, he asserted that I've said there's nothing that will convince me. Nobody that's listened to me can remotely make a statement like that, because my answer to what would change my mind is, I don't know. But if there's a God, that God knows what would change my mind, and that God should be capable of changing my mind. And that hasn't happened, which means that God either doesn't exist or doesn't want me to know it exists yet. That is I've said it so many times, I can spew it. I could be high as fuck and spew that sentence out. There's literally no way anybody who's ever paid attention to what I said could say, Matt says nothing will change his mind. No. I've pushed back on theological non-cognitivism and this notion that nothing could or would change any people's mind. I don't know. It's annoying to be there, to be getting that kind of stuff. We have calls already ready because I guess you and Jimmy just did like, I don't know, a gazillion 1 hours, and we're going to keep
We
going.
just kept going. And I also, I entirely understand what you're talking about, how frustrating it is for somebody to like try to have an argument with something that you like either fundamentally have not said, or like what they wish you'd said, or they like will argue that you're wrong without ever actually broaching your thing. I had a guy on TikTok. There was a clip of me. Well, crazy sounds. There was a clip going around of me talking about how religion is harmful. And some dude who's apparently a professor of religion made 3 videos about me, how terrible I am for saying that religion is harmful because there's no definition of religion and nobody knows what religion is. I think it sounds like Arden talking to a creature.
I think Arden just said, "I love you so much"
to Daphne.
And she wasn't talking to me. Arden's having an affair in the other room right now.
With a cat.
My mic was on. Oh my god, that's so funny. I don't know how Daphne got in here. I haven't seen her all day, so.
Yeah, I didn't see her over by here, but as soon as I heard it, I was like, I think I just heard Arden say, "I love you so much," and I was like, she's having an affair, but it's just a cat.
It was, "I love you so much, but you need to get the fuck out."
See, that's what we should say to several of the callers. Like, for example, right. Max, "I love you so much, but you need to get the fuck out. You will not be calling today while I'm on the show." Now, to be fair, if you call and Forrest wants to talk to you, I will just play a game of chess or something while you do that.
He doesn't. He does not. But yeah, like I'm not going to name anybody's names because I'm not trying to send people to go attack anybody. But like, yeah, no, it happens a lot. And it happens especially with people who have some sort of stake in getting a beef with you because they have nothing to stand on from themselves. Yeah. But if they can use you to get them attention, then it doesn't matter what they said. They can just say, this guy's wrong for these reasons. And people who already like them are going to be like, yeah, you said a thing. Good job. And that's all.
Yeah,
the outcast in chat, call in about it.
I ended the conversation with, go ahead and rent that room and your head out because I'm done using it. And that will be the end of that conversation. By the way, which of us is steering calling studio? Are you picking calls? You want me to pick calls?
It's up to you, amigo mio. I'll do it if you like, but I'm happy to have you do it.
Yeah, let's just start at the top. If you're ready, I'm ready.
Yeah, Ted's been waiting for a long time, so that sounds great.
That's all right, because I know from Ted's area code exactly where Ted lives, but I won't say it because I'm not here to dox anybody. I just love the fact that Ted is calling from somewhere in Tennessee. Pronouns are he, him. Hey, Ted, how you doing? You're on with Matt and Forrest.
I'm doing great. I'm really happy to get to talk to you guys. I was calling in to talk to Forrest, but when I found out I was going to be on with Matt as well, I was like, oh man, I'm so excited because I've been watching both of you. I've been watching you for a little bit longer than I've been watching Forrest, but I've been watching Forrest's channel. I've been watching your debates, and I'm just a big fan. So it's really an honor to get to talk to you, both of you.
Sweet. I can't wait to disappoint you.
How can we help?
So I'll give you a little bit of my background, and I'm trying to, after listening to both of you guys and my own personal study and everything, I'm struggling with my faith. I am a theist. I grew up a Christian. I've recently done an in-depth, almost like unintentionally deconversion of Christianity. I found most of the claims to be false, but I'm trying to get a deeper understanding of science, and I was wondering if Forrest or even Matt could explain why fine-tuning doesn't explain God, because I've listened to like John Lennox
doesn't
and other
God?
Christian.
Do you mean why fine-tuning doesn't point to God?
Exactly.
Because there is no fine-tuning. The appearance of fine-tuning and fine-tuning aren't the same, but I'm going to let Forrest dig in.
Yeah, I would say that like there's a couple of things. Is that like, number one, it is a lot like the puddle analogy that Douglas Adams says, that there's this puddle in the ground and the puddle thinks, wow, this hole in the ground was perfectly carved exactly for me to fit in here. And that's just not how it is. The universe is what the universe is. And the things that we see in the universe are the result of that. And you can relate it back to evolution. If we change the conditions of an environment, then evolution is going to go in a different way for whatever species is living there. The reason we are the way we are is because of the way the Earth was. If the Earth wasn't this way, then we would be different or we wouldn't exist in the first place. And the universe is the same thing. Also, if you're going to say the universe is so fine-tuned, show me a rough-tuned universe. Explain to me what an unfine-tuned universe looks like and give me an example of one. There isn't. this is just the state of physics. It seems to be the only way that a universe like ours could exist at all. And so that's just kind of how it happens to be. It's also, there's a lot of stuff that we don't know about the universe. Talking about stuff happened before the Planck time, way back before, before the Big Bang. It's possible that this universe actually existed in some way or another eternally, and it was different before and had different laws that don't make any sense to us now. We just don't know. And so all it is really is looking around and saying, wow, this is really neat. Some guy must have made it that way. And the problem with that argument is, number one, it, like I just explained, it isn't logical to get to that conclusion in the first place. Number two, it now demands that there's some other kind of place outside of space and time, and there's some guy that's there, and that matters, and that's a whole bunch of shit that you don't have any evidence for. There's no amount of fine-tuning that will make you believe or give you evidence for like some supernatural plane with some dude in it. And number three, it's never just that. It's never just some designer. It is their specific designer from their specific holy book, in their specific version, their specific interpretation, their specific language translation, their specific decision of like what this guy is and what it's always this whole long thing. It's never just, it seems like this might be designed. It seems like this might be designed. Therefore, you can't be gay and you can't, and you have to vote Republican and whatever fucking other thing. And so there's just a lot of reasons why that argument isn't good, not only because of how it's usually used, but also because it simply on its face just doesn't make any logical sense.
Yeah, I think the way I look at it, I think the way I tend to look at it is, how can we tell the difference between a universe that was intentionally fine-tuned for life, a universe that allows for life, but wasn't intentionally fine-tuned, that may have the appearance of being fine-tuned, and in a universe where life happens, irrespective of whether there's even an appearance of fine-tuning. And I don't know how to tell the difference between those three, sorry.
Right. Well, and so I have another question for both of you. Like, what was the final conclusion? And I'm sure Forrest would probably say science for him, but I'm not sure for you, Matt. What was the final conclusion that kind of you said, hey, we can't conclusively conclude there is any God that made you become atheist? Because I find sufficient evidence that the stories of the Bible are made up. There's some history to them, but they're not very true. I'm really not interested in learning about other religions as far as wiping them out. What do y'all think?
So I think the key is what we're talking about.
I can't tell you what the moment
is.
I'm sorry, you go ahead, Max. You go for
he was asking what the moment was that basically made me an atheist. And I can't tell you what the moment was. What I can tell you is that it was a 1.5-year process where I was trying to be the best Christian I could be. And in the process of finding a way to defend Christianity, I eventually really reached a point where I realized I can't defend this. There simply isn't evidentiary warrant for it. And so then the question became, okay, if Christianity is not true, is there a God at all? And do I need to explore every single religion out there, or is there a better path? And so for me, the better path was to dig in on philosophy, and in particular epistemology, and then to start studying the various claims. So you have classical theism, et cetera, to figure out what kind of God might exist. And then that should narrow my focus. I joke that right off the bat, I realized, hey, I should probably look into Buddhism or something else with reincarnation so I can figure out if I'm going to have enough lifetimes to explore this question, because it's too much for one lifetime in general. But when I realized that, okay, let's figure out what kind of God could exist and what should count as reasonable evidence for it, I found no justification for any particular God claim ever being verified. And right now, nobody's even come up with a pathway to confirm supernatural causation, which is critical. We have no access at all to whether or not there's anything supernatural, a God, spirits, another realm. We can't confirm the multiverse. This is essentially a completely untestable, unfalsifiable hypothesis that there's anything other than the natural world. And so while I'm not a philosophical naturalist in the sense that I don't assert the natural world is all there is, I'm absolutely a methodological naturalist because we know the natural world exists. We don't have any way to confirm any other world. And how weird is it that there are countless people running around claiming that they have discovered or been discovered by or interacted with something supernatural, and nobody can ever demonstrate it. And when you talk to people about what convinced them of the supernatural, the most common assertion on their part is ultimately the fallacy from an argument from incredulity, that something happened, they didn't have an explanation, and they couldn't think of any better explanation than the supernatural. And it's just like, it's embarrassing that how frequently people do that. Like, that's a good 60, 70% of theistic defenses, at least, you know, in my kind of armchair defense, is that ultimately they look around the world, they just can't see how this could happen without a God. And I'm sitting there going, that doesn't mean it was a God. And by the way, I can't see how this could happen with a God.
Yeah, I would just kind of parrot what you're saying, and then just kind of the main thing is, I wouldn't say that science is the reason why I'm an atheist. I would just say that there's no reason to believe in a God, so I don't. It really is that easy. And then I do also take that secondary stance of like, okay, if there is such a thing, what kind of God is it? Certainly not one worth worshiping. So even if you prove this is real, not interested. But then also science comes in and fills a bunch of gaps, which are pretty fucking tight.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. Matt and I, we had similar experiences. I set out to do the same thing, prove Christianity right, and then inadvertently just found out that it was just all completely false. My second question, my last question, I'm just curious, and Matt kind of alluded to it when he gave an answer. As far as what do you think? Richard Dawkins says it's more likely there's a multiverse than there is a God. Do you find in your studies that the multiverse is plausible, or no?
Richard Dawkins is not a physicist.
Yeah, not only that, Richard Dawkins is not particularly impressive on a number of issues, but when you say a multiverse is more plausible than a God, how did you determine that? Because he might just be saying, hey, at least we have scientific reason to think it's true, and we don't have that for a God. Mm-hmm. But since a God is an untestable, unfalsifiable proposition, at least, you know, most of the ones that we've looked at, it seems to me that how could you possibly say X is more plausible or probable than Y when the existence of Y is untestable and unfalsifiable? How could you calculate how probable something is if you have no way to investigate it?
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, there's a lot there. Anyway, I appreciate you calling in, Ted, and I appreciate you waiting so damn long between shows to talk to us. I hope that we were helpful in some way.
You were. I really appreciate it. Like I said, I'm excited to get to talk to both of you. Thank you for talking and giving me the information. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate you, Ted. Have an awesome rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Sweetness.
Nice guy, Ted. Ted waited for a very long time. Ted called in during the last show and just had to wait while we wrapped that one up and then got into this one. With that, we got several other callers already lined up. Lines are actually somewhat full because we got people trying to call in, but we got a lot of atheist calls, so I'm going to start burning through those as quickly as we can so we can get more theist calls in here. Let's start with... I think we can do this one pretty quick. Frank, pronouns he, him, calling in from Itchy Lobsters, had an argument with another atheist about good people do evil takes religion, quote, was told it's nonsensical, wants some help understanding the problem with the quote. I don't have a problem with the quote, but I guess there's
nonsensical
bad things too. There's a lot there. Frank, you're on the line with Forrest and Matt. How you doing?
Doing good. Appreciate you taking the call. So yeah, you said what happened. I got into a argument with another atheist on a YouTube channel in the comment section, and it was about that quote that Weinstein, I think, was the name of the person who quoted it, saying,
Yeah,
Weinberg,
Stephen
yes.
Weinberg.
So you're familiar with it, so you know there's no reason for me to repeat it.
The quote is that without religion, good people tend to do good things, bad people tend to do bad things, but you need something like religion to get good people to do bad things.
Okay, that is it. I put that on there because I've always liked that quote, and I didn't give it much thought, but I got into an argument with another atheist who said it is just absolute bullshit. It is a nonsensical statement, and I wanted to get your guys' opinion on that. It might be a learning process for me because some of the points this person made were sound.
That person should probably call in at some point, but they should also look up the word nonsensical, because there's nothing nonsensical about the quote. It makes sense. It's not word salad. It's not incoherent. It is a statement. It may or may not be true. It is a kind of generalized assessment that Weinberg was doing to say that, you know what? Yes, religions can get people to do things that are good, but religions can also get people to do things that are bad, and religions can get people who otherwise wouldn't do a bad thing to do a bad thing. And what Weinberg was saying, by the way, was not religion, but he said something like religion. And so it's not merely here's a formal religion and that formal religion gets people to do bad things. It's talking about the mindset of an idea that is top down in its structure, that makes people almost blindly driven towards a particular goal or position, irrespective of what they otherwise might value. And so the notion that it's nonsense, I mean, okay, I guess the conversation's over. Like if I say something, if I say this quote and somebody just says, "Oh, that's nonsense," you need to go look up nonsense, because there's no usage of the term nonsense where that makes sense to me.
Okay, there was several things that were listed in that I'd like to discuss with you as well. She said, this person said that atheists use groupthink just because some other famous atheist said it. They use groupthink and go right along with it.
Right.
So many first of alls.
Right.
So many first of alls.
I thought you said you were talking to an atheist.
Yes, this person is an atheist.
And your atheist friend said that atheists use groupthink?
She's not a friend. It was an argument on a YouTube comment section.
Whatever. Your atheist interlocutor said that atheists use groupthink.
Yes.
Okay.
And I got into an argument about that.
Yeah, that's the thing. I'm sorry.
Can I read you?
Jeez, I give up.
Can I read you the remark? Or
I don't think it's necessary. And I'm sorry, there's a bit of a delay, so it's kind of hard to keep talking over each other. It's incredibly silly to say that atheists use groupthink when the only unifying thing that unites all atheists is that they don't believe in a God. They're atheist Republicans, atheist Democrats, atheist conservative, atheists or liberals, atheists that are absolute fucking assholes, atheists that are super nice, kind, charitable people. The one thing that unites them is that they don't believe in a God. And especially if you are putting out the in this conversation, comparing them against a religion or a religious group, which is defined by groupthink. You have a guy up on stage, the preacher, telling you what's going on, and then you get yes, and you believe the thing, and you believe because it's in the book, and the book says the thing, so you believe the thing. That's a very funny comparison for somebody to make. It sounds to me like this person is an atheist, but either this person is not really an atheist and is trying to be, subversive on these atheist boards or whatever the hell you're messaging them on, or this person is in the flowery phase of atheism, talking about how all religions are actually really nice, and I just happen to not believe, but religion's actually a good thing. So they're not an atheist. They're an atheist, but they're not necessarily anti-theist, which most of the people on this channel are. So if this person wants to call in and talk about it, that's great. But otherwise, everything you're reporting to us that they said doesn't make any sense.
Not only that,
yeah,
if they're an atheist.
I think I defend. I'm sorry.
Never mind. I said I give up. I should have just stayed giving up.
Yeah, you dick. over here trying to
Ken,
interject with
well,
your reasonable thoughts.
I think I in the debate I defended the groupthink type of thing, and I explained it pretty much exactly what you said. And it's and there is definitely groupthink, or I call it hive mind in theists, because if they don't follow what the doctrine tells them to follow, they're not truly a theist in that particular religion. So they have
unless
to
they want to
think,
go down the road and find another church that says what they actually want to hear, because that's what they all do, because there's no real point. Anyway, Frank, I think we're just agreeing with each other at this point. So I'm going to tell this person to call us. Otherwise, I think we're going to move on.
Okay, thank you very much.
I appreciate you, Frank. Take care. Bye. Where the hell is my marker? I need to be able to take notes. There it is. It's over here where it's not supposed to be. That makes sense.
So the one thing I was going to recommend is if you're actually talking to an atheist who says atheists use groupthink, ask that atheist why they're using groupthink. Because I think you're going to find that they're making a distinction between them as an atheist and other atheists, and that will help you figure out where they've gone completely wrong.
And that is a very not groupthinky thing to do. We've also got Brandon, pronounce he, him, calling in all the way from victorious Aardvarks, who wants to argue that Roe v. Wade needed to be repealed, pardon me, and that all the presidential candidates are untrustworthy and will subvert democracy. And we're going to see how this person gets to a third-party argument if they do. Brandon, you're on the line with Forrest and Matt. Are you just calling in to say you're voting for third party? Is that what you're saying?
I will not be voting this election. I want to say hi to you guys before we get started. Just big fans of both y'all. Like
I'm
everything
not a fan
you do.
Of you. I don't want to say hi to you. I don't want to say hi to people who could vote to stop fascism and protect the climate, queer people, women, the economy, and have decided not to help at all. So I'm not a fan of yours, but I appreciate the fact that you called.
I understand, Matt. And we've talked a little bit before, and I would like to say that in my conscience, I would not feel good about going and voting for either candidate because they are untrustworthy to me. I understand what you're saying. You have the better point.
No, you don't.
I totally agree.
Why don't you give a shit about people?
I do. Absolutely.
No, you don't, because you're not taking any action to protect people. You're doing nothing for the tens of thousands of people who get pregnant by their rapist child and are forced to carry it. You're not doing anything for the women who bleed out while trying to get to emergency rooms. You're not doing anything for climate change. You're not doing anything for the economy. You're not doing anything for trans rights, queer rights. You're not doing anything to protect the world from the Heritage Foundation, Project 2025, Christian nationalism, or Donald Trump, the lying fascist who tried to get his vice president killed and overthrow an election. You are not doing anything. Don't pretend that you are.
Well, I talk to friends, and I live in a very Trump area.
It's your vote. If it's your vote, you are throwing your vote away. Don't pretend that
I live in Virginia. My vote, my vote doesn't matter in Virginia. Virginia's going to be blue.
Don't pretend that you've done anything when you've done less than thoughts and prayers.
Well, I appreciate your opinion, Matt. Still a big fan.
I don't give a shit what you appreciate. You are being stupid and you are not helping people. And all I asked you was, why don't you care to help people? And you pretended like you are. How is what you're doing helping? Shut up. How is what you're doing helping anybody?
Well, I believe a lot of the Trump supporters have been completely brainwashed. It's more of a cult than anything.
Ask you about
and I
Trump
do my
supporters at all. All right, look, I'm going to mute you. When I ask you a fucking question on the show, answer that question, not some other question. What are you doing to help any of those issues?
I was answering that question. It's a
No,
cult,
you weren't.
and I've tried my best.
No, you weren't. I'm going to mute you again. We're going to start over. I can do this all day. I can shut the fuck up. What are you doing specifically? Nothing about what you're doing needs to start with, I think Trump people have been brainwashed. That's not a description of what you're doing. I want to know what you are doing to help any of these issues. Go ahead.
I'm actively talking to as many people as I can and trying to convince them that the two-party system is broken and we need to...
You're an idiot. All right, I'm going to mute you.
So No,
Go ahead,
do you have something to say? I'm sorry. No, it's fine.
I have lots of
just
things
wanna,
to say, but it's probably better if I sit back for just a second and calm down. Because anybody who thinks that talking about how the two-party system is broken when fascists are preparing to take over on Tuesday is literally being too stupid at this moment for me. So I will allow you.
I want to ask, Brandon, you're saying that you're not voting and that you're going to stick with your conscience and not vote in an incredibly privileged position to hold. And then you're saying that you're now going out and talking to people and trying to convince them that the two-party system is also so terrible. What's the end goal? When you try to tell people to not vote, or you're trying to tell people the two-party system is so bad, is your goal to get them to not vote or to vote third party? Or what's your end goal with doing that?
I guess it's just bring awareness, Forrest. I don't know what to do. To be honest with you, I've seen the system be broken my entire life.
So you're just out there telling people that you don't like the government and you have no intention in any way. You're just bitching to the wind and seeing who listens. That's all that you're doing to try to help people, you're saying?
I guess you could put it that way. I'm actually trying to convince people that voting for Trump is a bad idea. But I would also say that Harris has some pretty fascist ideas about what she wants to do as well.
Who would you rather they vote for if not Trump?
I don't care who people vote for, but I don't think either candidate is trustworthy or deserves a vote from anybody.
So here's the reality.
It's not about deserving a vote.
No, seriously. Here's the reality, Brandon. I think you and I can agree on this. The actual real reality of the situation is that on November 5th, one of the two candidates, Trump or Harris, is going to win the election. Do you agree with that? Either Trump or Harris is going to win?
Yes, sir.
There is absolutely no way that any of the third-party options could possibly win this election, right?
That is true.
Now, all the people who would be convinced to not vote for one of those two candidates, of all the people who are voting for either Trump or Harris, is it more likely, in your opinion, that you sway somebody away from Trump or away from Harris?
Probably away from Harris, but I've never tried to talk anybody out of voting for Harris.
Right, but you didn't say that. You said that you're talking to anybody who will listen. You said that you're talking to all these people about this and that you yourself are not voting anyway. So here's the reality. Everybody who's going to vote for Trump is voting for Trump. There's nothing you can do to sway them away from Trump. Certainly not swaying them away from voting in general. They're going to do that shit. Meanwhile, the people who are talking about abstaining from voting or voting third party would otherwise more than likely be Harris voters. There's a small block of them that would be third party voters regardless, but the big swing, the big movements that we're seeing right now is leftists arguing about who's going to be the better leftist, and they're all moving away from Harris. So all you're actually doing by sowing so much discord and telling everybody, hey, the two-party system sucks, all you're actually doing is leeching votes away from Harris, as you also are taking a vote away from Harris, all the while saying that you're working with your conscience when your conscience is the most privileged fucking position that you can take. Because as Matt was just saying earlier, the end consequence of you preserving your conscience and refusing to participate in the trolley problem with the rest of us is that millions of Americans will lose their lives, their rights, their dignities, the entire nation flirting closer and closer to fascism. Genocides around the world get exponentially worse as we are continuing to help perpetuate them. Everybody suffers because you didn't want to participate. Does that sound like a conscious, moral, good thing for you?
The way you phrased it, absolutely not. But I still don't feel like that's my position, and I don't think that is a fair way to describe it.
You'd feel that way.
What
if you
am
were
I missing?
smarter.
Well,
what am I missing?
Would you say that any presidential candidate that gets in and tries to stack the Supreme Court as of now is doing fascist type behavior?
No.
You think stacking the Supreme Court to push through whatever you want and get the decisions you want is a good thing for the country?
It's what
that's
everybody
not what we
who's
said.
ever.
That's not what we said.
Putting people that you like on the Supreme Court is what the president has always had the ability to do. we're not arguing that Trump putting certain people on the Supreme Court is fascism. We're saying
Neither am
Trump
I.
putting more we're saying Trump putting more super conservative people on the Supreme Court will help bring about fascism, makes it more likely that fascism becomes a thing, as we have already seen demonstrated with the conservative majority of the Supreme Court ruling that any action the president takes, as long as it's a so-called official action, is allowed and legal, and the president is above the law, flying in the face of what we got rid of Nixon for. So we're not saying anybody who puts anybody on the Supreme Court, stacks the Supreme Court, whatever, is necessarily doing a fascist thing. That makes no sense. We're saying that Harris could potentially put really good people on the Supreme Court. Trump almost certainly will put terrible people on the Supreme Court that will inevitably bring about more fascistic issues.
Is this the fascistic thing that you... Shut up. Is this the fascistic thing that you thought Harris was going to do, was to put people on the Supreme Court?
Stacking the Supreme Court, not just assigning a judge.
Sorry.
Every president gets to assign a judge, but changing.
Is this the thing that Harris was going to do that you think is fascistic?
I still don't think you understand what I'm talking about.
He asked a question.
Are you going to answer my question? Or am I going to dump you from this program as a useless waste of oxygen that's decided not to vote and has accused Harris of being fascistic and stupidly thinks that stacking the court is fascistic? Which one?
If he changes our system to add judges to our Supreme Court, I believe it's fascist. I'm working on it. You cut me off every chance I try to speak, Matt.
How many?
I'm going to fucking cut you off permanently if you don't answer my fucking question, because you're wasting oxygen and time on this show when you're not even fucking voting. You're lucky we are giving you half a second to explain why you've decided to not give a fuck about anybody. So my question is stacking the court the thing that you were referring to when you said that Kamala has fascistic tendencies? Yes or no?
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Then you don't understand what fascism is. You don't understand what stacking the court is. You don't understand what putting people on the court is. Now we have something to work with. Thank you for answering the question.
Also, the number of the number of justices on the Supreme Court has changed like 5 or 6 times over American history. Was it always a fascist thing to do, or is that just something that's allowed because it is?
I think it depends on the circumstances of the situation. They would probably have to be judged separately.
So then what is it about this circumstance in particular? You think that Kamala Harris expanding the Supreme Court and putting more judges on there, which is something she has never said she's going to do, to my knowledge. What about this particular circumstance?
No, she hasn't, you liar. She has not said she's going to stack the court. You don't even know what court stacking is or what she said.
I do, and she has. But no, I would say that because right now she knows that
Here we go. I'm muting you. Brandon, you go find where Kamala Harris said she's going to stack the court, and don't call back until you do.
The closest I can find...
I'm not hanging up. I'm just not going to let Brandon fucking lie on my show, because I want her to stack the court. I want her to stack the court, and so does Andrew Seidel, and so do plenty of other people. But you know what she hasn't done? She's never said that she's willing to stack the court.
The closest thing that I can find is in this interview where she said, I believe there should be some kind of reform of the court. We can study what that looks like. That's the closest I can get to it. That could mean 1,000,001 things. And even if it did mean that we should add more Supreme Court justices, that's something that has happened several times in the past. And so, like, it's not like it's a new idea. Nothing about that makes this particular point fascistic. And especially, like, it's important to remember that fascism is, by definition, a far-right ideology. If she, as a left-leaning person, as a Democrat or whatever, were to stack the Supreme Court to enact more democratic policies, that would result in the opposite of fascism. That would result in a more liberal society. Matt, you have your hand up. What's going on?
This is a quote. At her CNN town hall, this is 4 days ago. Sorry, this was maybe, when was this article written? On the 30th. At her CNN town hall, Kamala Harris was asked if she supported packing the Supreme Court with multiple additional justices in order to change its ideological composition. She declined to dismiss the idea. Instead, she said, I do believe there should be some kind of reform of the court, and we can study what that actually looks like. So, Brandon, are you ready to retract your absolute bullshit that she said she would stack the court?
I may have been looking at an older article, but I saw where she said she supported stacking the court.
Okay, maybe you were looking at an older article, or maybe you're making shit up. But you need to cite your source, because none of us have ever heard her say it. We don't know what source you're pulling out of your ass or wherever. But until you can find that source, you stand monumentally fucking corrected, right?
You keep muted. I can't hear you because the beeping keeps happening. If you're asking if I was wrong, then no.
You've just been corrected, correct?
If she said that 4 days ago, then maybe she's changed her position since what I read.
Or maybe you were fucking wrong, since you're the only one here who thinks she ever said it. You're too stupid to even figure out why you should vote. Why on earth do you think you're right about what Kamala said?
I'm just amazed that you think that it's a good idea for anybody to stack the Supreme Court when they can't get pushed through what they want through.
You know who else thinks it's a good idea? Andrew Seidel, the First Amendment constitutional scholar who's a regular guest on the show. You know who else thinks it's a good idea? Everybody who's ever increased the size of the Supreme Court. I don't give a shit that you, the dumb guy, are dumbfounded that I'm in favor of more Supreme Court justices when you can't even figure out why you should fucking vote.
I just think it's a little bit of a fascist, selfish way to think, because
You're
you
wrong.
can't get
It's
pushed
not
through
fascist.
what you want through.
You are wrong. You are wrong. It is not fascist. Nobody gives a fuck what you think, Brandon, because you don't understand what fascism is. You don't understand how the court works. You can't even figure out why you should fucking vote.
I just want to ask, Brandon, you keep throwing this word around. Can you just define the word fascism for me? What is fascism?
To me, fascism is implementing a will onto the people that don't want that pushed onto them. And that is stacking the court is a great way to do it.
First of all, that is not what the definition of fascism is. But also, if that's the definition you want to go with, that's literally everything this government has ever done and will ever do. Because there's never going to be a position that the government can take that everybody's going to like. Most of what the government does now, most people don't like. Most people want things like gun law reform and shit like that. And that doesn't fucking happen. We continue doing things the way we're doing things. Most people want better healthcare system, and we don't do that either. We just kind of keep going on what we're doing because we have these bullshit, political party talking points. So, by your definition, the entire government is already fascist and has been fascist this entire time. Where are you drawing these distinctions from? Also, that's not the fucking definition of the word fascism, by the way.
To be fair, Forrest,
who said that it's only okay with left fascism, you should call in and define fascism too.
Yeah, to be fair, Forrest, he didn't say this is what fascism is. He says this is what fascism is to me, because Brandon has his own definitions and understandings of everything that don't match reality, which is why he can't figure out why he should fucking vote.
It just amazes me. Y'all are just as bad as the right. You make excuses for.
Oh boy.
Oh no, I wanted to get the end of that sentence.
I'm gonna unmute you in just a second, Brandon. But congratulations on y'all are just as bad as the right. You're literally. Oh no, Brandon hung up. We're not just as bad as the right. You're just as bad as the right, because Forrest and I are here trying to stop fascism and trying to stop Christian nationalism. And you're over here whining and bitching about how the two-party system needs to be repaired or replaced. And so what are you doing about it? You're talking to your friends. Well, go talk to your friends, because I'm done fucking talking to you.
I would love to, because I guarantee you're just as bad as the right was going to be followed up with, you won't even hear me out or whatever like that. It's a call-in show. We don't have to give you a platform. We were doing you the courtesy of letting you say some shit. And we don't have to continue doing that. If you're going to continue to just say, in my opinion, everything is fascism, therefore it doesn't matter what I do. But that's the whole point of the call. my opinion, my personal definition of fascism, which isn't the fucking definition, is so big and broad that I don't like anything, and so I'm just going to sit by and not participate so I can claim some sort of moral superiority when millions of people are hurt, because at least I didn't make it this happen. I didn't participate. I just sat here on my hands and watched it, and that means I'm somehow better. Like, what the fuck is that? Like, just, dude, learn how to make a difficult decision. You don't have to like it. I don't fucking like Harris that much. I like some of the stuff about her. I like some of the things she's proposed, but I would certainly like another choice better. But I'm going to vote for her because she's not a fucking fascist.
Exactly. You know what I'd really like? I'd like for Project 2025 not to get any sort of foothold. I'd like for Christian nationalism to not get any sort of foothold. I'd like for the traitor who is currently preemptively lying about election fraud, just as he's done every single time, to not find a way to get elected. I'd like to do things to protect the people I love, to move the needle on climate change. But here's the thing. If we actually got together, all of the left-leaning non-voters who think the world's going to build a statue to them and they're going to be praised in Gaza for throwing their fucking vote away, if all of you got together and elected Kamala Harris with a mandate, you know what could happen the day after she's elected? We get together and we say, we picked you to represent us, and now it's time for you to listen to the will of the people and move the needle on this issue over to here, and move the needle on this over here. Because you know what's never going to happen? Nobody on the left, no matter how many people get together, you're not going to move Trump's needle. You're not going to move the Heritage Foundation's needle. You're not going to move Christian nationalist needle. And so while we're out here standing in front of the fucking firing squad, you're hiding over there going, well, no, this isn't what I wanted. I didn't get my perfect candidate, and the two-party system's broken, so let's just let it all burn down. I just can't believe you guys, Forrest and Matt, I know you're trying to protect us, for protect the climate, protect the economy, protect queer people, protect women, but you're just as bad as the right. Go fuck yourself, Brandon.
What gets me is just the fact that this dude does not realize that his entire position is just fucking dripping with so much privilege. When you talk to fucking like BIPOC people, like you talk to people of color in this country, the ones who they have had the right to vote for a couple generations, right? They've been allowed to participate for that fucking long. There are people alive today that had to pay a fucking poll tax and shit to be able to vote and had to decide whether they want food or they want the right to vote. There has never been a time for them where they got the candidate that was good for them. They got candidates that were less horrible for them. They had to vote for survival, not for like big benefits and big reform and big change and shit. That is how it's always been. That's why when we talk about shit, like we look at the history of this country's like facade of equality and of liberty and all this shit. When Thomas Jefferson wrote that all men are created equal while owning, like, what was it, 200 something slaves and having a fucking sex slave chained up in his basement, that shit. And the same thing with liberty and justice for all, which was passed at a time when, we still had segregation. We still had, no civil rights laws, when you still had, this fucking racist statues being built all around the country. That shit, this facade of equality that we've had to deal with this whole time, as long as people of color have been able to fucking participate, they have been voting to survive and to make shit just maybe a little less fucking terrible. And you are going to sit here and say, yeah, but I don't get the one that really I like, the one that's doing everything for me, the one that really is resonating with my personal definitions of different governmental systems and things. So therefore, I'm just going to sit out and let shit get worse because fuck it. It doesn't really bother you, does it? The worst thing you have to lose is your taxes are going to go up a little bit. Meanwhile, millions of people have to fucking suffer and die because you had your fucking high horse to sit on. Whatever, dude.
I suspect I found what Brandon was referring to. And as usual, Brandon's comprehension or reading comprehension is weaker than straw. Because in 2019, when she was running, she said, I'm open to this conversation about increasing the number of people on the United States Supreme Court. But she declined to say that she would be willing to do so or that this was her goal. As a matter of fact, in a follow-up question, when asked if she was willing to add, or if she wanted to add more seats to the court, and if that was her preference, and if she wanted to elaborate on what she meant by saying open to the idea, she said, I'm just open to it. So Brandon takes, I'm willing to consider this as an option. And because he doesn't understand the nature of the court and he doesn't understand what court packing is, he's like, wait, she wants to add to the court? No, she didn't say that she wanted to or that she would. She said she's open to it. If you can't sort out the difference between that, I'm almost glad you're not voting, because your comprehension of the situation is such that I don't have any confidence that if we made you vote, you would pick anybody who's going to be better. But I'm open to other callers.
It's crazy. Yeah, let's do some more. Why not?
I'm not in favor of other callers, but I'm open to it.
But I'll entertain it. Let's go through a few more of these and try to continue, like, just seeing where things goes. We've got Matt, pronouns he, him, calling in from Kickin' Yams, advocating for third-party voting and safe state votes. Safe state people should vote for Jill Stein. You should donate and volunteer for Harris. What a weird whatever. Matt, explain to me, please, why pulling votes away from Harris and making it more easy for Trump to win is a good strategy.
Okay, that's kind of a loaded question. Sorry. I just want to say, like, I've been listening to you guys for a long time, and I've like been very frustrated, like, by these callers, especially the last one who advocate not voting at all. This is terrible. But I'm just, like, kind of tired of the lack of nuance on both of our sides, both the third-party advocates and the lesser evil voters, because oftentimes third-party advocates, you know, obviously they pretend that both parties are, like, completely identical. I do not take that stance at all. I think that Harris is objectively better than Trump, like, period. But the thing is, like, I've heard the mandate argument from Josie and others that getting Harris's numbers up in safe states is very, very important. But I just see it as more important to grow an alternative option and express, like, my positions when I can. And I think that pushing these issues is more important than increasing the mandate of Harris.
Is it more important than stopping fascism?
Okay, but voting in safe states isn't stopping fascism, because
you don't know what a safe state is. You don't know what a safe state is.
California, is it going to go red this time?
No, it's almost certainly not going to go red. But what does your vote for Jill Stein do in California?
It pushes ranked choice voting. Like,
no, it doesn't.
Okay, let me ask.
It does not. Let me ask you a question.
No, it doesn't.
Why pick Jill Stein? Why pick Jill Stein as the third-party candidate to vote for this performative thing?
Because she's the least of four evils.
She's the least of the evils. So the person who has millions of dollars of investments in fossil fuels, while out here every 4 years making up a big stink about how we need to get rid of fossil fuels, this hypocrite that works for Putin and has gone to Russia and done live broadcast parroting exactly word for word what needs to be on RT. This person is the least of the evils that you're talking about?
Well, I mean, she's at least against genocide. I mean, it's something. But
is she? Unless Putin's doing it.
I mean, the reason she chose Butch Ware is because, like, he's Muslim.
Hey, I'm against genocide. I'm against genocide. Why don't you vote for me?
Right. Why not? Right.
I mean, like, it honestly doesn't make too much of a difference in safe states, but in swing states, absolutely not. Obviously, do not write anyone in, and any Jill Stein voters in swing states seem to get their head on straight and vote for Harris instead. Like, don't worry, like I'll cover you, I'll vote for Stein. But
you have
don't
this
have
person
to, like, swing state
who
voters.
is like, you have this person who is the patron saint of performative activism, who shows up every 4 years to make a big fuss about fascism and about climate change and about fossil fuels and about genocide and all these things. And then the rest of the 3 years and 365 days or 364 days she's around invests heavily and works heavily in these things and supports these things and makes money off of these things so that she can afford to show up again in 4 years and say the same dumb shit. And it's also important to point out that this is someone who knows that she cannot win. So it doesn't matter what she says. She can say anything, no matter how politically expensive it is, because she knows she can't win. She has no intention and no need to come up with any sort of an actual strategy to solve the problems that she makes such a big a stink about and makes so much money off of. She doesn't care about any of that. She can just say whatever the fuck she wants because she knows she's not going to win. And what's more important is that as long as I have been able to vote, I have heard of Jill Stein as this special candidate that's there. She has run again and again and again and again and again and achieved exactly the same amount of success every time, which is none, all while driving what we had as a Green Party into the ground. The Green Party that we have now is a fucking husk of anything that any other Green Party is. It's why the Green Party in like the UK is asking her to go the fuck away because she's just so useless. So she is a terrible leader who doesn't understand when to shut the fuck up and leave for the good of her team. All she cares about is herself and making her own money and getting her own attention and, incidentally, supporting Vladimir Putin in anything that he wants. That's one of the reasons why we got Donald Trump in 2016 is because Russia worked so hard to encourage people to vote for Jill Stein to pull people away from Hillary Clinton. So why specifically is she the lesser of all the evils, as opposed to Harris, who actually knows how to be a politician and has some success under her belt and maybe doesn't represent everything you like, but is a fuck a lot better than the shitty reality TV star Trump, who is a fascist cult leader that is willing to sacrifice the lives of millions of Americans and millions of people in Palestine in order to make his dick look a little bit bigger. Why out of these options is Stein the one that you think that you need to be voting for?
Well, I don't think that, like, I think you're kind of acting like this is an even playing field. Obviously, any third party is fighting an extreme uphill battle because
no, they're
obviously
not fighting.
It's a two-party system.
Green Party aren't fighting. They're not fighting for anything. This is a grift. Mm-hmm. They need to get a certain percentage of votes, and so they appeal to idealistic idiots who don't realize that the Green Party is not going to make any headway. They've had multiple opportunities to make headway. But you know who does understand it? The Green Party in 16 European countries that have asked Jill Stein to step down and endorse Kamala Harris in order to save democracy. Your vote for Jill Stein are not much more effective than thoughts and prayers. They will do nothing to help the citizens in Gaza. They will do nothing to help the climate, nothing to help pregnant people, nothing to help queer people, nothing to help the economy. You are not participating. You are buying into a grift, a professional campaigner who just waits till the next time to bring in millions of dollars to act as a spoiler or try to leverage one of the parties to take them seriously, which is how, if Trump gets elected, we're going to end up with anti-vax dipshit worm in the brain RFK Jr. in charge of public health.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything both of you guys are saying about Trump. He is a huge threat, and I like that. That's what why part of my thing, my call-in message is like, state voters need to be donating and calling, making phone banking and all that for Harris. We need to get those swing state voters out. And I applaud Andrew Seidel and Josie for pushing that. I wish more of the hosts said more about donating to her campaign. Like, I understand you guys need to chill for your own channel, but I donated $54 to her campaign. Vote? Not yet, no.
What will change your mind?
I guess if the electoral college is abolished.
It's the election's fucking Tuesday, you dipshit. How can you say that you'll change your mind if the electoral college is abolished by Tuesday?
Yeah, I was joking.
Hit you in the fucking head?
It was a joke. It was not serious.
Does it sound like I'm in the mood for fucking jokes, you dipshit?
Okay, I apologize. Sorry.
The country's on fucking fire, and you're telling people not to help or not to help fully.
Yep.
You want them to help a little bit, but you also want them to help the Green Party remain irrelevant, but just enough to be a
them to
nuisance.
get slightly more relevant.
It's not going to. You know what the definition of insanity is? Doing the same thing over and over and expecting different fucking results. When is the last time any third-party candidate got a single electoral vote?
I mean, just because they haven't before, like just because it's been a while, to me that means it's overdue. It's overdue.
I'm gonna mute you,
That's
Matt.
not how it works.
You don't get to fucking use the name for the rest of the call. Matt's my fucking name. You are now dipshit for the rest of this call, and you can shuck the fuck up.
That's so dumb. That's so dumb.
You don't even get to use the name. When I ask you a question, which is when was the last time a third-party candidate got an electoral vote, you answered that question, not some other question. So, when was the last time a third-party candidate got an electoral vote?
Decades ago.
You don't know when? What kind of political activist are you on behalf of the Green Party if you don't even know when the last time somebody got an electoral vote was?
All I know is
1968.
that
It was 1968.
Okay, yes, decades.
It was a year before I was fucking born.
Yeah, decades.
Yeah. When was the last time any third-party candidate got more than 4% of the vote? Or sorry, more than 5% of the vote?
Ross Perot, right?
Yep, 1996.
All right.
How's it working out for you? How's your Green Party vote working out for you? How many more decades are you going to let people die from getting pregnant? How many more decades are you going to ignore climate change? How many more decades are you going to allow for all of the fascistic Christian nationalist stuff to keep going before you decide to chip in and help out?
I mean, I did chip in with $54 to Harris's campaign. Does that help?
Oh, congratulations.
I got to ask, like, honestly.
All right.
The thing is, I got to ask, like, seriously, are you at all concerned about the fact that Trump said to a Christian congregation that if they elect him, they will never have to vote again? Does that bother you in any way?
Yeah, and that's why I donated to her campaign.
Does that bother you more?
What a shame you won't vote.
Does that bother you
because my vote doesn't matter.
less? Does that bother you more or less than the fact that we have an electoral college system? Which one of those is more of a pressing issue?
They're both issues.
I asked you which is worse. Which one are you more concerned with?
Sorry, what was the first one besides the electoral college? The abortion?
I can't even remember two options.
It was Trump saying to a Christian congregation that they will never have to vote again if he gets in office one more time.
Oh, yeah. He's a dictator. He's a fascist. I agree fully with that.
That's not what I asked you.
Thanks for nothing.
Which of the two options that I've given you here are you more concerned with?
Trump.
Right. So it stands to reason then that for this one day, you might need to participate with the electoral college system to make sure that Trump doesn't win the election. And then the other 364 days and 3 years that you have, you should be fighting tooth and nail, campaigning, getting petitions signed, phone banking, raising donations, doing everything you can to make sure that we have more than two candidates and we don't have the electoral college anymore. Just don't fucking raise money for Jill Stein. She's a fucking grifter Russian robot. But anybody else you want to raise money for, sure, just make sure you're doing that at a time when we aren't actually in a situation where either Trump is going to win and hurt millions of people or Harris is going to win and things will probably stay largely the same.
But you agree that the only thing that matters is her beating Trump, right?
Yes, which is why I'm voting for her.
No. It's not the only thing that matters. The possibility of a stronger mandate with broader political capital matters as well. You said you understood what Josie was saying, but it's clear that you don't.
That's a good point. I was talking very short, but that is true.
Okay. Well, the mandate. The thing I think is let's go hypothetical here. Let's say Harris won. Netanyahu. says, damn, my guy lost. I still really want to annex the West Bank, though, so I'm going to do it anyway. Would you be more or less likely to do something to stop him if she got 56%, Trump got 44%, and Stein got 0%, or if she got 45%, Trump got 44%, and Stein got 11%?
This is an insane situation. Like, go back and rewatch Josie's call where she explained how this works. I'm not a political analyst. I'm not in this way. She explained it thoroughly the last time I was on with her. Just go listen to that, because honestly, it doesn't sound like it's sunk in.
You listened, but you didn't comprehend.
Okay, well,
she is more capable with a large mandate, and with a large mandate, she is more capable to make significant change and listen to her base, which will help get her in office. That's the long and short of it, as far as I understand.
And with a higher percentage of anti-genocide votes, she'll be more pressured not to go with Netanyahu.
I'm sorry. Excuse me, dipshit. I need to interrupt for a second, because you don't get to do a hypothetical where you only focus on the one issue, because at no point have Forrest or myself said that if Kamala Harris gets in, she will be awesome for Palestine. If Kamala Harris gets in, do you think Roe v. Wade will be codified?
Hopefully.
Okay. If Harris gets in, do you think that's more likely if we've given her a mandate and made sure that we elected a good Congress to go along with her? Gave her some political capital in order to use that as leverage?
Yeah, and that's why I advocate that we vote.
Do you think that'll change? These are yes or no questions. Shut your pie hole unless it's yes or no for now. Do you think that queer people will be better off if Kamala Harris is elected with a proper mandate to lead?
Yes.
Then why aren't you doing everything in your power to give her the mandate to protect queer folks, to protect pregnant folks, to protect the climate, to protect the economy, and to move the needle on what's better for Palestine?
I'm doing that by donating to her.
No, you're not. You're not. I said, why aren't you doing everything you can to give her a mandate with the political capital to do what needs to be done? Voting for Jill Stein does not accomplish that at all, does it?
I think protesting is more powerful than the mandate.
Does voting for Jill Stein do anything to increase Kamala's mandate or political capital?
It protests her.
Does it?
Nobody's.
I'm going to give you exactly one more option, dipshit, to answer the question that you're asked, you dishonest dipshit. Does voting for Jill Stein give Kamala Harris any more mandate or capital?
No.
No. Then why did you pretend that the answer wasn't no just a minute ago?
It doesn't give her capital, but it gives her...
Why did you pretend that the answer wasn't no a minute ago?
Did I?
Yes, you did.
Okay.
Everybody fucking heard it. As a matter of fact, put a poll in chat, please. Did dipshit from Kentucky pretend that the answer wasn't no? Why are you making me why are you making me irritated and have to force you to give a simple answer to a yes or no question? Because Forrest and I are sitting here asking the right questions that exposes the stupidity of what you're arguing for and the grift that is Jill Stein and the Green Party people. And when we ask the questions that would expose this, you tap dance, and that's dishonest as fuck.
What's really frustrating about it is that you keep bringing up, well, I donated $50. So like your plan is to give money to the people to try that they're going to use to try to convince people to vote for Harris. You're giving money to make sure that as many people as possible as you can afford are gonna vote for Harris. And then you're gonna sit back and just fucking not, so you can say that you didn't participate, but did participate at the same time. It's so weird. It's like you're trying to have your cake and eat it too. Only it's instead of cake, it's just fucking privilege and comfort. Like it's just not appropriate.
Where are they gonna spend that money? Swing states or safe states?
It doesn't matter. The fact is you're doing two things at the same time.
No, I'm muting you, Matt, because I am sick and tired of your dishonesty. What you should have done a minute ago was say, oh, yes, I apologize for misrepresenting that question. You're correct. I was wrong. But instead, you are engaged in more dishonesty because Forrest just asked you a question and you tried to spin it off as, well, I gave them $50. Where they're going to spend that money? They're not going to spend it here in California. Nobody gives a fuck what you donated or where it's going to go to. Congratulations. Congratulations. You did one good thing. Now tell us why you won't do the other good thing.
Because I hate the Electoral College and I hate the two-party system.
Cool.
So do
what does
I.
your vote for Jill Stein do to change the two-party system or the Electoral College? Nothing.
It gives incentives to pass.
I'm not going to let you
voting.
answer. The answer is nothing, because when I asked you questions before, you refused to give the answer. The answer to my question is that you voting for Jill Stein does nothing to eliminate the Electoral College, does nothing to eliminate the two-party system. It never has, and it's not going to now. Stop lying to yourself. Stop lying to us.
Seriously, there's
do you know
so
how
many
states
ways.
have ranked choice voting?
There's so many ways for you to
3 or
actually
4,
protest
depending
this
on whether or not
and
you're looking at per issues or in national elections.
Right.
Yeah, so
there's so many ways for you to protest this and make it better. And you're choosing the lamest, weakest, most meaningless possible way. The same way that happens every fucking election cycle, and everybody thinks they're making some big fucking statement. And then we get Donald Trump. The Bernie or Busters back in 2016, that's how we got Donald Trump, because a bunch of people were like, I'm not going to fucking participate this. I'm going to prove them wrong. I'm going to prove a message. I'm going to send them. I'm going to show them. And then all these places that should have been secure and should have been good for Democrats and should have been locked in weren't anymore, because a bunch of people tried to send a protest, tried to really make a, and you're going to sit here and say like, no, this state is secure. No matter what, this state is going to be exactly what it is. Why does the Electoral College work the way it was? Because the people in that state voted the way they voted. So you can sit here and say, no, for sure it's going to be this. When the reality is, as we've said time and time again in this show, everybody who is going to vote for Trump is going to vote for Trump, period, no matter what. There's a group of people that were going to vote for Stein or whoever the fuck already. They're going to vote that way. The only people who are being swayed in this situation are people who would have voted for Harris and now are not. And that means that these safe, secure places are no longer safe, secure places. You're just playing with fire and fascism because it makes you more comfortable at the risk of the lives of millions of people.
And every time we ask you a question, you decide to engage in some whataboutism by saying, how many states have ranked choice voting? As if that was relevant to the fact that voting for Jill Stein does nothing for that. How many states have banned ranked choice voting?
Too many.
Yeah. And if they've banned it such that you're not going to get it, how do you change that?
Protesting.
No.
Like, I advocate protesting everywhere, including the ballot booth.
You can protest till the cows come home and you can throw your vote away, but there's no demonstration that either of those things increases the likelihood that those states that have banned ranked choice voting are going to change. In order for that to happen, you need to elect people who want to change that.
Well, they're not going to want to change it if there's no reason for them to change it. If no one's voting for third parties
no,
and
you're not
independents.
listening. No, dipshit, you're not listening. I said you need to elect people who want to change that. It's no point telling me they're not going to want to change that. I'm saying you specifically elect people who want to change that. If you're not going to listen to what I say and think about it for half a second, I will definitely be done letting you speak on this show. So stop bringing up irrelevant things and whataboutism. In order to change the ban on ranked choice voting, you have to elect people who are wanting to change that.
And yeah, okay, I apologize for bringing up irrelevant things. I was talking specifically about the candidates who want to change it. They're not going to want to change. They're not going to campaign on ranked choice voting if there's no reason to campaign on it. If no one's voting for third parties or independents, then there's no reason
Matt,
to advocate for that or campaign on it.
I shouldn't have called you Matt. I'm sorry, dipshit. The thing is, the people that you're talking about have failed and continue to fail. And so you're like, oh, they're not going to say that they're running on ranked choice voting unless there's people out there doing third party votes. But you're wrong, because when you vote third party, nobody knows why. Nobody's going to know when you vote for Jill Stein if you're doing it because you want ranked choice voting. Nobody's going to know if you're doing it because you're too stupid to figure this out. Nobody's going to know if you do it because you're just Green Party, true blue or true green all the way through. Your vote doesn't come with a manifesto or an interview. It does not send the message that you think it sends. What it says is you, like thousands of other people, do not understand how the system actually works in order to be effective at changing it. All you're doing is making sure that the fascists on the right, who aren't ever going to support any of your issues, get more power than they should have.
I just think that it's more effective to try to change it when everyone's thinking about politics, other than like next year or whatever, like off years where
well, you're wrong.
Like
you're wrong. You are wrong.
That's not how it's
You're
ever
absolutely wrong. You can think that that's how it works, but you're fucking wrong.
Okay, so is it never okay to vote for a third party or independent candidate? Like,
that's not what
until
either
they're
of us says.
magically viable.
As a matter of fact, Forrest and I have repeatedly said, I believe both of us have said, Forrest can correct me in a second, that the time to vote third party is in primaries and in local elections and things like that, because that allows you to get third party candidates in positions where they can have an impact on making sure that other third party candidates become viable.
I've also repeatedly said that when it is not currently in the middle of a general election, you should be doing petitions, phone banking, campaigning, doing all sorts of public awareness things to get that shit fixed in our government, because it's not just the presidential election that matters. It's mainly like midterms and getting people in Congress and getting everybody else to be aware that this is something that the American people want. That you should be lobbying. You should be running for office yourself. These are all things that you could be doing to actually make a difference, rather than throwing your vote away during a critical election and just risking the lives and safety of lots and lots and lots of people because it's just more comfortable for you. It's incredibly privileged and selfish.
The house is on fire and we're trying to put it out, and you're standing off to the side going, well, I hope you do put it out, but I'd like to talk about the fire suppression system and why it wasn't installed correctly. That's right. That's what you're doing.
The time to
and
do
when
that
the house is on
November
fire
6th.
Is the exact wrong time to do that.
I mean, I would say a closer analogy is that there are 50 houses that have their own individual fires, and unfortunately in my state, the people with the gas are the ones who are going to win, unfortunately.
So now there's 50 houses that are on fire, and instead of taking practical steps to put any of them out, you're going to talk about the fire suppression system in some of them. Congratulations.
Well, I mean,
you made the analogy make you look even stupider.
My donation to her campaign means that the people with the hose in the places that matters get a bigger hose.
No, it doesn't.
Or it doesn't matter where I am.
It just doesn't. It just doesn't. And honestly, we've been running in circles for the past 26 minutes about I'm not going to vote because whatever. But I donated, but it doesn't matter, but it does matter. But we need a different system, but I'm not going to get one now. And it doesn't matter because it hasn't actually made any difference in the past several decades anyway. And it's this just on and on and on for 25 minutes now of here's this bullshit. Here's why the bullshit actually doesn't matter in the first place anyway. But I donated anyway. Here's this other bullshit, and here's why this bullshit doesn't matter anyway. But I donated. It just isn't good enough. And honestly, the fact that you can sit here and stare down the barrel of what's about to actually happen in this country and just be like, well, at least I didn't participate significantly. It's just, dude, it's not good enough. This country deserves better. You deserve better. I'm good to move on. Matt, are you good to move on?
Yeah, because $50 is...
the vote's worth so much more.
1/100% of what was raised.
Still more meaningful than my Kentucky vote.
No,
nope,
it's not.
It certainly isn't. It certainly is not. Goodbye, Matt.
Dipshit, not Matt.
It's just the same thing over and over and over and over.
It's incredibly frustrating because here's the thing with Dipshit and the others, they have good goals, but they're completely bonkers about how to effectively implement these these goals. Ooh, I'd like to eliminate the electoral college. Me too. I'd like to change the two-party system. Me too. I'd like to have ranked choice voting. Me too.
So instead, I'm gonna make sure that somebody gets in power that wants a one-party system, and that'll get us closer to having a three-party system. And then I'm gonna spend money to make sure a candidate wins, and then vote against them and make sure they don't. Brilliant, Matthew. You really have solved the puzzle. It just, oh my glob, dude. There's a chat poll up. We got fucking Max calling in again with the same thing that he's called in every fucking show that I've been on for the past long time. I'm so done. Yeah, I don't want to do it. And so, like, we got a chat poll up. You can decide. The audience can decide if we talk to this guy again. Because, quite frankly, I am sick of hearing that religion serves some utilitarian purpose by subjugating people in such a way that we get a society that Max thinks is beneficial, and also biblical morality is better than secular morality, as long as you don't think about the slavery, I guess. I'm bored of it, but we'll let the audience decide. If you want to see us suffer, we're here for you. That's honestly, what I always say. This is the show.
There will be no Matt versus Max. I will sit here and play chess and take my earbuds out if I need to. But if they want Max to get in, I don't get to decide for everybody.
Early chat votes say no, so I might just drop him because it's costing us money. We could get a better caller.
Yeah,
let's get a better caller. Yeah, goodbye, Max.
Bye, Max.
Nobody cares. Just nobody wants to hear it anymore.
Wasting an hour on hold.
He waited for over 2 hours on hold on the show I was on with Jimmy before this.
He's desperate to make a name for himself. It's like he's in love with us.
The guy just wants to be the next Darth Dawkins and just wants to call in and say a bunch of bullshit and get some airtime. That's literally all it is. And every single time that he calls, it's the same fucking thing. Here's this bullshit that I just thought up. Okay, here's why that sucks for literally everybody. Yeah, but it's Catholicism. And other religions aren't real religions. Only Catholicism. And like, it's just, I don't know, dude. It's hard. I mixed him up with Steve and Imperius and the rest of them.
Yeah. This time he said he had studies on the benefits of religion to nations. And the problem is there are no secular humanist nations. I know that when I sat down with Jordan Peterson, he tried to claim that the Soviet Union was a secular humanist nation, but Jordan Peterson's an idiot and doesn't understand what secular humanism is either.
Or that dragons aren't real.
Or that you can quit smoking without having a mystical experience.
Shit, dude. Or how to answer a direct question. There's so many. We can go on to this forever. We've got this should be. Are you cool with me doing this evolution call real quick?
Go for it.
I think we can talk to this guy. Sweet.
I might have something to say, but I might not. Who knows?
Hell yeah. Brian, pronouns he, him, calling in from Tenacious Xenon. Talking about noble gas with a lot of sass. Recently left my faith. Still have a question about punctuated equilibrium and evolution. Wants to get the last remaining God of the Gaps argument out of his head. Totally sounds cool.
Hello.
Still calling in as a theist, though. But hello, Brian. Hi, you're on the line for us.
Step back from the mic.
Oh, sorry. How are you doing? Is this better?
Much better.
All right, sweet. So yeah, I guess the prompt says pretty much everything that I wanted to say. I guess mostly this will be a pretty short discussion. I just wanted to hear Professor Forrest talk about punctuated equilibrium, I guess. I have already done, I have a bachelor's in biochemistry, so I've gotten most of the undergraduate evolution courses out of the way.
Right on.
I guess the first thing would be telling our audience what punctuated equilibrium is.
Yeah. So when we look over so evolution is a gradualistic process. And so you have this slow change over time, multiple generations. We have these slow changes with little bits of phenotypic change here and there. Sometimes there's a little bit bigger change every now and then. It kind of speeds up a little bit whenever there's like, a change to like a fundamental body plan gene, like a Hox gene or something like that. Sometimes we get big developmental pathways change and things like that. But generally speaking, nice, slow, gradual, easy change. But then when we look at the fossil record, we see that every now and then there are like these major jumps where all of a sudden, out of nowhere, there's just a shit ton of new diversity and like new kinds of things popping up. And so we have this, what we call punctuated equilibrium, where the fossil record is more or less in a state of equilibrium. There's this kind of thing that exists for a few 100 million years or whatever. And then there's a punctuation of rapid diverse change. And then there's something else. And when you first learn about that, especially at an undergraduate level, these ideas are proposed as competing ideas, as competing hypotheses for like how we should look at evolution. When the fact of the matter is both are true at the same time. Because what's actually going on in punctuated equilibrium is that we see a mass extinction event followed by adaptive radiation. So what does adaptive radiation mean? Take, for example, Darwin's finches, right? You have this population of finches that is, thrust into this island, this archipelago, with a lot of different niches, with a lot of different foods and things that they could be eating. And so you have this one type of thing now diversifying into several different types of the same type of thing. This is what we call adaptive radiation. You think about like the radiation from a central point, and they're adapting into different niches, different bodies, different styles, different whatevers, different minor adaptations, variations on the same form. And that's what we see when we look at things like punctuated equilibrium. It's not like, there was dinosaurs and then the dinosaurs all shit themselves to death and then there were mammals. Mammals have been here for 200 and something, like 220 to 250 million years. They've been around for a long fucking time. We have a mass extinction event, KT extinction, 60 to 65 million years ago, and now we have this big opening where the mammals have an advantage and they can now diversify rapidly from little shrew dudes into the wide diversity of mammals that we see today. So like that's kind of the thing we're talking about. With punctuated equilibrium, it's not a competing hypothesis with gradualism or a different type of evolution or anything like that. It's just a pattern that we see in the fossil record following mass extinctions and relying largely on processes like adaptive radiation. That's how that whole thing works.
All right. Thank you for catching us all up. I guess one of the terrible God of the gaps arguments that I kind of held on to while I was still Christian was sort of like, I guess it's the idea that you have this constant mutation rate. So how do you get this punctuated equilibrium despite there being like a pretty much constant mutation rate, maybe more or less constant? It seems like you'd have to have a lot of mutations in a really small amount of time in order to get like the adaptive radiation.
Not necessarily.
Of course,
so
I kind of understand.
It depends on, because this is a very common question. It depends on what niches are available. So remember, the competitive exclusion principle of ecology states that you cannot have two species occupying the same niche for very long. Eventually, one of them will outcompete the other, and then that niche will remain exclusive to that one species. So when you're looking at a gradualistic perspective in between the punctuations, you are having the same mutation rate, yes, but you still have limitations on variation based on that competitive exclusion principle. You can't have significant enough variation that would put you in competition with another species that's already well established in that niche. Meanwhile, if you have a mass extinction event or you are put into a new place where you do not have competition, there's open niches there, you can adapt into those niches just as quickly as you can adapt into anything. There's no selection pressure holding you back from that. That's why we see trends in things like, for example, island biogeography, where you put a population onto an island. Take, for example, dwarf elephants, the hobbits, Homo floresiensis, the cold-blooded goats, like all these weird-ass species that we've gotten, where you take something that's relatively what you and I would think of as normal, put it on an island with totally different selection pressures, no predators, different food, resource availability, whatever, and they dramatically, rapidly change into something that we would never expect from that taxon. And so when you're talking about, the rapid diversity that you see, that kind of rapid diversity is always available. What we're seeing is the opportunity for that diversity to take root. That's the difference.
Gotcha. I wish I could have talked to you about all of this while I still had my beliefs. I think this would be way more fun for the audience rather than me just agreeing. But this is super fun for me to talk about.
It's really cool, dude. And like, this is something that like you can see a lot of. I'm trying to think. Like, look at diversity of cetaceans over the past few million years. Like, you look at the fucking amazing bone crushing fucking whales that were bopping around. Look at the remarkable diversity in primate populations today, and how it's just not as simple as we like to pretend. Like, there's a lot of situations where you see like some really, really extreme diversity coming up as soon as it's capable, as soon as they're able to do these things. Shit gets weird real fast, and that's pretty tight.
Right. No, evolution is really cool. I'm glad that I chose a bio major, or at least one of the branches of bio in college. Of course, evolution is still super important in pretty much everything that I want to do research in. So
yeah, dude,
really cool stuff.
By the way, to everybody who I saw several people in the chat saying, "Holy fuck, cold-blooded!" What? Yeah, they're called cold-blooded goats. Myotragus belliaricus. I'm trying to find a good picture here. Look them up. What was really cool about them? Not only were they cold-blooded, but also they had front-facing eyes. They looked horrifically human in the way that they were looking at you. It's
right. Oh my gosh.
It's a bad time. It's a bad time. They lived in the Mediterranean. I forgot how long ago, but they were there for a long time, and it was just because they had totally different selection pressures. Bad time. Anyway, Brian, I hope that this helps answer your question. We're going to jump on to some theistic calls, but is there anything else you wanted to bring up before we move on?
No, I think that's basically all the substance that I wanted to get through. Love talking to you. Maybe I'll come up with something a little bit more entertaining and longer next time I call in.
Yeah, yo, get me and Erika on a call together. We'll talk about punctuated equilibrium for 45 goddamn minutes. It'll be great.
Heck yeah, I would love to.
All right, I'll see you later, Brian. Bye-bye. Super fun. Thank you so much for letting me do that.
Yeah.
I needed a palate cleanser after taking 2 or 3 or whatever calls about goddamn Jill Stein.
I also just uttered some syllable. I have no idea what you were like. Thank you for letting me do that. And I was like, I don't know what I said.
I talked about punctuated equilibrium so wrong that Matt had a stroke and we had to move on from the show. We've got a bunch of atheists on the line. Theists, where are you at? What's going on? The amount of theists that I've got on my Instagram right now talking to me about how they trying to start fights and pick arguments, asking me to prove to them why God is evil and why the Bible isn't true and all these things. I've got a dude asking me about like genders and shit, saying, "Oh, this is on this page that believes in different genders and stuff." I'm like, call in. I would be happy to explain it. And we never get them. We just never give them. I've still got the dude I haven't heard from in a couple of weeks, but there's still the dude who thinks that I'm running from the FBI. That guy won't call in. What's going on? We're going to, I guess, move on to just another atheist caller. We'll just get through as many atheist callers as we can until a theist decides to call in. We will go with, this is as close to a theistic caller as we can get. Tony, pronouns he, him, calling in all the way from the far distant land of Texas, wants to know if we would consider simulation theory. No. Tony, you're on the line with Forrest and Matt. How are you doing?
Good. How are you guys doing? Can you hear me?
Yeah, but you need to back up the microphone a little bit. It's breaking up.
Oh, is it? Okay, let me switch up my Bluetooth. 1 second. Apologize, guys.
So my quick answer is I see no reason to consider the simulation a hypothesis. It's not a theory. But, wow, now I'm hearing myself back.
Right.
But no, I would not consider it real.
Okay.
I don't know where Forrest is, but
yeah. What do you think the word?
Yeah, it's an unfalsifiable claim, so there's no reason to entertain it. It's like saying, how do you know you're not in an insane asylum right now and only dreaming all of this? How do you know you're not a brain in a vat being fed chemicals? How do you know you weren't actually born 30 seconds ago and implanted with memories of everything that you think happened in your life? Like, it's, even if I were to prove to you somehow, if I had some sort of proof that this was not a simulation, you could then say, okay, that's part of the simulation. That proof was coded into the simulation. That's all it is. And if I were to somehow prove to you that we were in a simulation and you woke up like Neo and then I could just say, all right, you're in level 2 of the simulation. You got into the next simulation. It was a simulation inside a simulation. That's all it was. It's like Rick's car battery. That's all it is. It's just, there's no point in discussing it because it is completely unfalsifiable. There is nothing you can possibly say that would justify believing in it or not believing in it that could not also be said in the opposite direction for the same reason. It's just a pointless, meaningless thought exercise. And it's very similar to hard solipsism in that way. We have no reason to believe that we're the only person in existence and only our mind exists and everything else is just a hallucination. There's no way you can prove that. No way you can disprove that. It's just a thing that you can say and it means nothing. So that's where I'm at with it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a popular conversation amongst, I don't know, at least pop science now, and I think it's originated in like the physics circle about whether it's whether we're in a simulation. I think Nick Bostrom actually made it like popular recently, but it's been a conversation that's been happening. You're right; it's not falsifiable. Also, is something that you can't prove either. But if that is the case, then it becomes a question like, could that be a god if that's the case, right? And the whole thing is based on a thought experiment that is very probable. Like, it sounds compelling, but you also can't prove it. Or
thought experiments,
right?
Yeah, thought experiments like this don't really do anybody any good because, like I said, you can use it.
Aren't all things in physics, theoretical physics, started off as thought experiments? You know what I mean? So like,
it doesn't do anything for us.
It is a fun thought. Anyways, and then I wanted to ask this actually second question on top of that. So it seems like you guys are not interested in talking about this, which is fine.
Forgive me for being so crass. I've been on the show for hours and hours, and I hear this all the time, and it's just not productive at all.
Yeah, sure, that's fine. I did not know that you're talking about this for hours and hours. That's why I'm asking the question.
Oh, you're fine. You're fine.
So, yeah. So the other question is, do you guys see? And it seems that I'm just tuning into your show that you guys are arguing. Well, you guys are talking about Jill Stein when I tune in, but like arguing why there isn't a god.
Why we don't believe in a god is a big part of it. We argue with theists all the time. I don't think anybody here is saying that there certainly, absolutely is not a god.
Especially these days. We're not talking about like ancient.
I haven't heard anything you've said for the last 20 or 30 seconds, Tony. It sounds like you're in a well.
Tony.
Yeah,
unfortunately, it's a crackly.
Like you're in a well. It's scratchy. Can you state your question again?
Oh, that's my fault, guys. I'm actually my Bluetooth messing up.
Can you state the question again?
I'm not going to hang around. Tony, thank you so much for calling in, man. I'm not going to wait for the phone to do whatever the phone's doing. Have an awesome rest of your day. We've got a few other people waiting on the line here. Including, we just got a call from Rob calling back in from Noodleyaks, who is talking about evidence that's faulty and not faulty and how to tell the difference and all this stuff. The issue with Rob, and I'll turn it over to you, Matt. I'm going to let you decide on what we're doing here. Rob's also a repeat caller. And I think the first time I talked to Rob was with Aaron Adair a little while ago. And Rob was explaining that, we write off different things as logical fallacies, different evidences for God as logical fallacies. Whoops, sorry.
No, I don't.
Just beeped some stuff there. So if someone makes an argument for God that's fallacious, we would write it off as a logical fallacy. But for Rob, divine testimony and revelation and all these things are actually good evidence. And so we had a situation where we basically got into these weeds of saying, like, if I make the same claims you're making about anything at all, I believe I invented some Callipygian goddess that I believe in for all the same reasons that Rob believes in his gods, you wouldn't believe it. Why? And we just didn't get anywhere for like an hour. So that's what this call's seemingly going to be about again. I'm interested to know if you were willing to to deal with it, because I'll take it for a minute.
Let's talk. No, let's talk.
Let's see what happens. All right, Rob, we'll bring you on. You're on the line with Forrest and Matt. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you guys?
Exhausted.
Never had a bad day.
Ready for the election to be over. And absolutely unwilling to put up with any bullshit. So I'm genuinely hoping that Rob and I can have a good conversation where we come to some kind of understanding. So how can I help, Rob?
I want to have a fun show.
Great. Yeah. Well, me as well. You know, I think it's important for us to talk about what is and what's true and what's factual and what leads to that. So, you know, that I think was where I really wanted to start, was to talk about evidence and how you can tell the difference between evidence that is faulty and evidence that is factual, or evidence that leads to that which is factual, from a skeptical perspective.
Evidence.
How do you come to that?
It's really strange, because evidence, how can you tell that evidence is faulty? I'm not even quite sure what that statement means, because it's not. So, for example, evidence isn't fallacious. Only arguments can be fallacious. And so a piece of evidence is either consistent with a particular hypothesis or it's not. Now, there's also evidence that is faulty in the sense that there may be data that was, from a biased source, that was, faulty methodology with the study that results in the data. So I'm not quite sure what it is that you're getting to.
That's why systematic meta-analyses are the best kind of evidence, because they're filtered and well supported and based on lots of different things.
Well, I'm really getting at the I'm really getting at the point that, I did a lot of rewatching of the conversation that we had, myself and Forrest, and I still stand by what I say, that I think it was a very good conversation. I didn't like, some of the comments afterwards, because I just think it's not kind and comes from bad character.
Rob,
but
I'm not here to rehash. Rob, I'm not here to rehash your thing with Forrest. Let's talk. We don't need to go into the past at all. I asked you what you're talking about. I explained where my problem was. Let's keep going.
Okay,
also,
so I'm getting to an ultimate
lack of character. I just want to understand what you said.
Yeah, I was just saying that it wasn't good character to, attack a person you don't really know. Great, I think
it wasn't good character for us to. It wasn't good character for us to vent our frustration after we wasted over an hour of you being totally dishonest about your positions and trying to apply the same logic that you're giving to us to anything else. It wasn't for good character for us to vent our frustrations about that with you.
No. I mean, I if Matt is okay with talking about it, I'll talk about it. I don't mind.
You know what, Rob? I want to talk about tonight and not previous calls. Yeah. How many times do I fucking have to say it?
He asked the question. So my point that I'm getting to in this call was really to talk about philosophy as, I think, very, very problematic, in the sense that what it seems to me, through my understanding, my research, is that philosophy actually almost reduces logic down to deductive, or tries to force everything into a deductive argument, which I think is already a problem if deduction or deductive arguments are either inductive or have inductive premises, or they are presuppositional premises. And I have not come across any deductive argument that really has anything but that. So I really think it's very hard to come from a philosophical or skeptical perspective that doesn't lead to some form of non-truth or non-certainty. And that, I think, is very, very problematic as a worldview.
Rob, I'm on record as saying that I see no path to absolute certainty anywhere at any time for anyone. So if your objection is that we can't get to certainty, I agree. That's not my fault, not my problem.
But let's think about this, right?
Neither one of us are philosophers, and that when we're talking about science, we're really largely talking about inductive reasoning, not deductive reasoning. And I can't remember if you're the person who told me to prove that induction is real or not, but if you are, I just,
doesn't matter.
Man, I cannot be flexed with about it.
No.
Okay.
No, that wasn't me. But actually, see, and I think this is a deeper point that everyone should think about, is we're not actually looking for truth per se. We're actually looking for certitude because it gives a feeling. We're looking for a feeling, a feeling of comfort, a feeling of safety.
Telling me what I'm looking for. Truth is that which comports with reality. I have no idea whether or not we have access to it, but I am not looking for certainty. I'm looking for truth. I'm looking for my internal model of reality to match the actual reality as best as possible. And for that, I need to use the best tools. And unfortunately, that means that on some occasions, the answer is, I don't have any good reason to believe that.
I also want to point out that you're talking about truth is just this thing that we seek for comfort. That is not at all what I, as a scientist, am interested in anyway. In fact, the most important scientific truths are the ones that make people extremely uncomfortable. It's what part of the reason for a huge chunk of my philosophy is in order to be a happy and decent person in the face of such deeply uncomfortable things, because I know that those things are only uncomfortable because of my cultural framework. So it's certainly not just about comfort. It is just about what's right and wrong.
But why do you think that these arguments are compelling to people? Right? Why do you think an argument, like for instance, in our conversation, one of the arguments was cosmologists believe blah, 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 right? Or scientists say A, B, C, D, E, F, G, right? That's compelling because people see an authority as having some sort of value, right? And when we give that argument, it actually gives the argument credence in our minds. Yet it's fallacious. It's a fallacious argument. But still, at the same time, it has some sort of feeling that it evokes within us that makes us feel like, okay, then there must be something to this. Why do you think that is? And my point, actually, to really just give the answer, is that it's because that's how human beings are designed.
You just want to say a thing.
No, I mean, okay, fine. That's no problem. You can answer.
Why are those things compelling? If somebody is honest, the reason why it's compelling is because somebody who has spent a lot of time studying and learning about something has evidence that compels them to believe a certain way, and you are valuing their perspective. And that's not an argument from authority to say this physicist has good information about physics, unless I'm saying because of who this physicist is. Especially not an argument for authority if I say most leading physicists, the general consensus in physics, the vast preponderance of evidence that is convincing most physicists of this thing, certainly is not an argument from authority. So if someone is honest, then it'll be compelling for them because they say, okay, so here's some evidence that I hadn't had access to before, or that I'll never have access to, but somebody who does understand it is telling me such and such, and that actually fits in better with where, with my understanding of reality. That's why it matters. That's why it's compelling.
Okay, so I just looked it up, right? Logical fallacy, the argument from authority is a logical fallacy that occurs when a claim is supported by an expert's opinion, right? Some say that's without evidence, without additional evidence. Some don't say that. Some of the definitions don't say that. But that it is appealing to an authority, and the idea is that it is true because that authority has presented that information. But that's not actually.
I remember hashing this out with you. That's not what Aron or I were talking about. We were saying that the evidence has convinced most physicists that this is what the universe, blah, blah, blah. That's not saying this physicist said it, therefore it is true. The argument from authority is saying this is true because this person said it is, not this person is highly educated in this field and they said it, therefore I trust their expert opinion. There's a massive difference between those two things. It's like when people say that anytime you insult anybody, it's an ad hominem. Ad hominem is you are stupid, therefore you are wrong, not you are wrong and stupid. There's a massive difference.
Yeah, but you can't tell the difference. If somebody says an authority says A, B, and C, how? If somebody is literally in the middle of an argument debating, and one person says an authority says A, B, and C as a support of their argument, how do you know if they're saying that it is true because of that, or if they're just saying that this person is knowledgeable and has studied and so on? So you can't tell the difference unless you really dig into it.
And you ask for multiple resources. If it's just one guy said this thing, then yes, that should be a red flag. But if they're talking about the general consensus in a field, that's very different. And it is still something that you should still fact check to make sure that they are not making a mistake. But for example, if I were to say Richard Dawkins says that sex and gender are the same thing and that they're binary, that is an authority in biology saying something that he does say that is objectively, demonstrably wrong. So that would be an argument from authority. I'm taking an incorrect position because this person said it. If, however, I say the vast preponderance of the evidence that we can see plainly on the ground, modern biology textbooks are now printing all, but like these great biologists are coming out and admitting and understanding we have 100 years worth of new research stating that actually these are different things. They're not binary, which is the standard, actually is the case. That's not an argument from authority. And if someone were to point to me and say, hey, Forrest is a biologist and he says that sex and gender are two different things and other binary, that is what I say, and that is true. But they shouldn't be believing it just because I said it. I'm bringing in evidence for my claims. And if somebody says Forrest says this, then the next person should say, why? Why does he say that? What is he talking about? If you don't know biology enough to have this conversation, then can you point me to some of his resources that he cites, that he talks about? Can you show me one of these biology textbooks that talks about this? Maybe they can explain it further. Like, yeah, saying this guy said the thing, therefore it's true, is an argument from authority. That's why we don't do that shit. You're just conflating terms.
Well, okay. Either way, I mean, the way I see it, maybe the way you see it, slight terms and semiotics. But I want to actually really focus on the plane of evidence then, because that's why I called in, right? You said we look for more additional evidence, right? When someone makes a statement like so-and-so is knowledgeable and in this field, and they said this is true, it doesn't automatically make it true, but we'll ask the question, well, what other further evidence do you have? So then what would be evidence to support, or what would be sufficient evidence? What actually is evidence? Because this is really the crux of everything. What is evidence? Look, every single conversation that I have heard of in these calls is saying the same thing. There isn't sufficient evidence for me to believe in a God, or I don't accept the argument or the claim that God exists because there is no quote unquote evidence. So what is this evidence? What is
There's
evidence?
lots of different kinds of evidence. They exist in a hierarchy. There's different kinds of evidence. Some are better than others. Expert opinion, background information, observation, things like that. Those are the weakest, lowest form of evidence that you should not use to back your whole thing on. Good evidence is case reports, controlled studies. When we actually look at like have an actual control experiment where we have a hypothesis or hypotheses that we are actually testing in a repeatable, functional way. Not every bit of evidence has to be repeatable. Otherwise, you'd have to have 10,000 fossils of the same kind of thing. But like you can do repeatable tests on one individual fossil or whatever it is to learn things about it. And the best kind of evidence, as I stated earlier, is meta-analysis, systematic reviews, going back and looking at a bunch of different studies, a bunch of different things that are empirical, testable, observable, falsifiable, actual real things in the real world that we can collect data on, and looking at all of them together to come to a generalized inductive consensus of what's going on there based on the evidence at hand, building a model out of that. I drew a shark and I crossed out the K and made it say shart. Check that out.
Okay, so then you're saying empiricism. Essentially, I haven't heard anything besides that. So empiricism and induction, those are your forms of evidence.
Empirical and evidence is a type of evidence, and inductive reasoning is a type of reasoning. So it's not inductive evidence, it is empirical evidence.
but you're using induction as a means or as a methodology in order to form whatever conclusions. You're using that
Sometimes.
method, and you're using empiricism and induction. So then, but how
Usually,
is that?
Sometimes we use
how is that?
deduction, but not always.
So how do you know that that is leading you to the truth? How do you know it's a reliable tool?
Two different reasons. Number one, because of its continued success. Because the fact that you were able to call me, because the fact that you were able to call me right now on a phone over the internet, and that I'm able to talk into a camera and thousands of people can listen to this conversation, all of that is only possible because of that scientific reasoning. This whole situation you're dealing with right now, as well as with air conditioning around you, the cars around you, the airplanes around you, the vaccines around you, every good thing about your society is because of that kind of reasoning. And the second thing that I would say is because it is the most logically sound, or I shouldn't say logically, the most reasonable way forward, because otherwise, if you're using purely deductive reasoning, you have to have a set of options that you're deducing, which means you necessarily have bias. In induction, you're able to take a look at the data as they are and build a picture out of what you have, and only change your mind when you fail, when you have something new that comes along. The thing about science is that we do not accept hypotheses. We fail to prove them wrong. We fail to reject a hypothesis. So you only move forward with an idea when you can no longer prove it to be incorrect. And because of that, we can make predictive models that allow us to test our theories in the real world and in simulations. We can use those models to design and develop things that were never there before. We can use those models in this inductive pathway to develop knowledge that did not exist before. That is the entire endeavor of science, is learning new stuff, building new knowledge that wasn't there before. And there's only so much you can do with doing that by just looking at the universe around you and taking notes. So yeah, the main reason this works, that I know this works, is because I can literally look around the world around me and see it working all the time. And it is also the most reasonable.
Only from an empirical perspective, and it will only give you a maximal, or sorry, I should say, it will only give you 99%, close to what you believe is true. Right? It's not definite, but it will give you something that you believe is true, close to what you believe is true.
Give me an example of a non-empirical evidence pathway, something we're not using empirical evidence that reliably leads you to truth.
Yeah, and actually, there was a statement that you made, which is
I would like you to answer that question.
Interesting. Yeah, I'll like you to answer my question. Answer the question. Well, sorry. Okay, no problem. Re-ask the question, please. I'm sorry.
Give me an example of non-empirical evidence being a reliable pathway to truth.
Non-empirical evidence being a reliable pathway to truth. Well, we would have to be talking about something that is immaterial. And because I believe, and I've mentioned this many times so people already know, every human being is presuppositional, whether you like it or not. They have presuppositions. They cannot avoid them.
So I'm going to
and
ask
I believe
you
that
again,
every human being
just going in this weird tap
Yep.
dancing
So
thing.
okay, no problem. I'll just give you the
non-empirical evidence.
No problem.
Yep, go for it.
No problem. I'll give you the list. Okay, so there are miracles that can happen. That is a evidence that can lead to the truth. There is revelation that can lead to the truth.
A miracle.
A miracle, the Quran. The Quran is a miracle. Yep, that would be one of the examples.
Yeah. So here we have a book, a deeply flawed and problematic book that claims to be a miracle. What is your evidence, your non-empirical evidence, that proves to you that it is a miracle?
Well, as I said, this is a human experience. So when you read it, it is something that speaks to you. Not only speaking to you personally, but it speaks about events, past events that are accurate, future events that are accurate. It's consistent.
Give me an example of non-empirical evidence that proves to you that the Quran is a miracle. Just one example.
Yeah, I gave you this example last time, that it says that those who don't believe in God, they have no sure knowledge of anything. They're not sure of any knowledge.
So that's
they
not
don't
an example.
know whether or not they have truth.
That's not an example of a truth statement. That is just some ancient philosophy that you are bringing upon me. That doesn't say anything. I'm asking you for
But it's consistent.
something
That's
that
the
we
point.
can now know. No, I'm asking you to tell me something that we can now know to be true, something that we have learned about the universe, true thing that we can reliably or rely at through non-empirical evidence. And you said, well, the Quran's a miracle. And that's just saying things. How do we know that based on non-empirical evidence?
How do you know that it's a miracle based on non-empirical evidence?
How do we reliably get to that conclusion?
So consistency and non-contradictions. If some claim about anything is not contradictory, the absence of contradictions is a sign to its truth. It's a sign to it being correct. It's a sign to it being. No, I believe that. Why would you say it's not?
Unicorns exist. That's a statement that's non-contradictory, and you cannot tell whether or not it's true.
Say that again? It's non-contradictory. Say it again?
Unicorns exist.
Unicorns exist, statement. Or the statement, unicorns don't exist. The claim itself, unicorns exist or unicorns don't exist, neither of those two statements is internally contradictory at all. And neither of them have a truth value that can be assessed. So the mere absence of contradiction does not indicate truth. You are simply factually wrong.
But unicorns don't exist. So how is that a contradictory statement?
You don't know that unicorns don't exist?
I don't need to know. It's a belief. That's the point.
Well, then I don't need to talk to you.
According to
once I've demonstrated that your statement was false, you went and asserted something that you can't demonstrate.
See, that's the thing, man. Is that we're back now after 21 minutes. We are now back to where we ended the call when you were on with Aaron and I, where literally anything that you say, we can easily say about some random fucking bullshit. You can say the Quran is real because it's got these consistencies, and we have these feelings when we have them, and we have this. It brings you to this, and I can say the same thing about unicorns, about goblins, about the Callipygian goddess, anything you want, and it means the same nothing.
If a book,
but you can't though. That's the problem.
No.
You can't.
No, listen.
Listen.
How do you demonstrate?
I'm listening.
If a book says things that are true, does that mean it's miraculous?
If a book says things that are true, then that means it's internally consistent, and that's
That's not what I asked. That's not what I asked, Rob. I've sat here. Shut up. I've sat here quietly and listened to you two go back and forth, despite the fact that I was going to jump into this conversation right off the bat and actually talk about evidence in a number of different ways. The question I asked you, never mind. I don't care.
It's hard to take it seriously, honestly, because even when you're talking
I'm
about
so
like
done with people not answering my fucking questions.
It's the same. Like when you're talking about how we have all these, like how you're gaining this knowledge of consistency of the Quran through observation, right? Through sense observation, sensory experience, and you're in some sort of experimental procedure to go in and fact check it and double check, right?
Yeah, actually, I will answer Matt's question. Matt's direct
I don't care. I'm going to go
question
get a drink. You can talk to Forrest.
Okay,
I have a totally different
that's
question.
fine. That's fine. Yeah, go ahead.
You're gathering this data about the Quran through sensory experience and through experimental procedure, checking, double checking, right? Finding what was consistent.
Yep.
That's empirical evidence. That's empiricism.
Okay.
Gathering sensory data and following a strict experimental procedure is empiricism. So I'm asking you again, what is non-empirical evidence?
Or sorry, non-contradictory. That is empirical. That's an empirical exercise that you come to the law of non-contradiction is a philosophical.
I'm going to say it again. The process that you are using by observing a methodology of checking between two different parts of the Quran and deciding this is the same as this and this is the same as this, that is an empirical exercise. It doesn't mean that the evidence points you to this thing being true. The evidence points you to the thing being consistent, which I don't even know if that's true or not. Frankly, I'm not too up to date with the Quran. It's just the Bible, but weirder. and so like it doesn't do much for me. But like that, all I'm saying is that is empirical. What you're doing, the practice is empirical. So I'm asking you, give me an example of non-empirical evidence that reliably brings you to a truth claim, and you've yet to do that.
Yeah, I mean, because everything that would be brought would be something that you would have to experience, right? Whether it's a thought or something you think about, something you read, and you consider whether or not it is contradictory or correct or accurate.
Let me ask you this: is there, with what you just said, the thoughts and the feelings and all the things that you're bringing up, because you will not fucking answer my question, so I'm just going to move on to a different one. Is there a single belief in any belief at all that you could not arrive at based on that kind of that faith, that unempirical evidence? Is there any belief at all that you could not take based on that?
That you could not take. Any belief that you cannot take based on empirical evidence. Could not take.
No, based on non-empirical evidence.
Sure.
Any belief
based on non-empirical evidence. Yeah, definitely.
Yes.
The existence of the existence. So I believe that presuppositionally God exists. That's something that has to be disproven. Presuppositions have to be disproven. So you'd have to bring evidence of some sort that would disprove that in order for you to not believe it. So we believe it by default. It's every human being believes that by default.
Not an answer to my question.
And then evidence.
And you're also wrong.
I don't see how it's
you're
not.
Also wrong,
there's no evidence.
You're also wrong.
It doesn't
Rob.
start
You're
with
also
evidence.
wrong. You're also wrong. You're
Damn
also
it, Matt,
wrong.
you said you were going to let me do the thing.
Presuppositions don't need to be proven. They're either accepted or they're not accepted. They're presupposed because they can't be demonstrated. Does the Quran say that Muhammad split the moon?
No, that's the opposite of what I said. I said
Did the
presuppositions
Quran
have to be
say
disproven.
that Muhammad split the moon? Listen to the fucking question I ask you.
I heard the question, but you were wrong in what you said.
Why didn't you answer
I didn't say that. I didn't say
then why didn't you answer the
presuppositions have to
question
be.
that I asked you? What? No, you said
Because
presuppositions need. All right, I'm going to fucking mute you because you won't shut your pie hole. You said presuppositions need to be disproved. No, they don't. Presuppositions are either accepted or not accepted. And we accept presuppositions out of necessity or out of being convinced of their usefulness. And they continue to exist if we accept them until such time as we find out that the presupposition is false. But presuppositions don't need to be accepted. They can be rejected. And I reject your assertion that God is a necessary preconception. Now to my question. Does the Quran say that Muhammad split the moon?
So it's in the hadith, yes, that Muhammad did not split the moon. It doesn't say Muhammad. It doesn't say. Yes, it says that it happened, not in the Quran. In the hadith.
Did it happen?
Yes.
How do you know it happened?
Yes, it happened.
How do you know it happened?
Because it's revelation. That's why revelation.
No, sir, that's not how evidence. If the moon was split, we would have empirical evidence for that.
See, the problem is that we believe that God has the power to do anything. So if
I don't care what you believe about God. What you believe about God is irrelevant to whether or not the moon was split. Prove that the moon was split.
Yeah, but I can't prove that the moon was split. I can't even prove the moon is there.
Then you shouldn't believe it. Then you shouldn't believe it.
You shouldn't believe that the moon is there?
Stop talking. Okay, I'm gonna mute you. Wait. Did you just say, should you not believe the moon is there?
Yes, I said prove that the moon is there.
You are literally, how do I prove? We've been to the moon.
That doesn't mean it's there. That is a subjective inductive.
Wait. We've been to the moon and you say that doesn't prove the moon is there.
No, that doesn't prove it. Proving means that we have a truth. We have 100%.
Goodbye. Goodbye.
I had a whole other thing.
Proving means we have
the most
100%. What's wrong with that statement?
This is the most. No, it doesn't. Proof doesn't. No, knowledge doesn't require certainty, and proof doesn't require certainty. I'm speaking colloquially on whether or not going to the moon demonstrates the moon is fucking there, and you're saying that doesn't prove the moon is there.
Where did Buzz Aldrin and Neil
moon.
Armstrong go? Where did they go?
I can see
Where
the
did
moon.
Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin go? That's what I want to know. Where did they go?
Wait a second. I'm actually trying to understand you because I don't see how you don't see that. That's a known thing in skepticism,
Rob,
that you can't.
No,
if you
don't
can't have,
you fucking dare lecture me on skepticism, you buffoon.
Rob, I'm asking you a
teach
question,
skepticism and have for decades. You don't understand skepticism. When I say, you say, when I say we've been to the moon and you say that doesn't prove it's there, yes, it does. In the colloquial sense of demonstrating the existence of something, it had already been demonstrated before we went to the moon. It was demonstrated by observation and countless measurements, including the moon's effect on the tides and things. But going there certainly demonstrates that the moon is there, because a bunch of people got together and calculated the distance from the Earth to the moon, the gravitational forces involved, exactly how much fuel it would take, how to set up a parade of missions to actually investigate and interact with it before we actually went there. And then when we say we went to the moon and you say that doesn't prove it's there, do you have any idea how absolutely asininely ridiculous you sound?
Okay, so then can you tell me if you believe the moon is there 100%? Do you believe it?
No, because as I've said,
okay, so
I'm not. Shut your fucking mouth while I answer your question, you inconsiderate, disrespectful buffoon.
I'm not disrespectful, actually.
Yes, you are. You're
am.
fucking interrupting
Cutting
me.
off our answers.
I'm going to fucking mute you, and we'll see if you ever get to speak here again, because you don't get to ask me a question on my fucking show and then interrupt the answer. No, I don't believe it's there 100%, because I don't believe anything 100%, because I'm philosophically consistent that you can't be more confident. You can't have a higher degree of confidence than the utilities, the tools that you used to get there. And since reason is founded on presuppositions like identity, non-contradiction, excluded middle, which we cannot demonstrate are always true, but seem to always be true, and they will continue to be used presuppositionally until such time as they're demonstrated they're wrong, I see no path to absolute certainty. I stated that at the beginning of this call. I stated that at the beginning of this show, that somebody tried to call me out on this. I'm on record for decades pointing out that I am not absolutely certain, and I don't think anyone can be absolutely certain. But knowledge does not require certainty. Knowledge requires a confidence level. In philosophy, knowledge is sometimes defined as justified true belief, but there are problems with that definition because we may not have access to truth, and we are constantly working the field of epistemology on what justification is. But colloquially, when people say they know something, they are expressing that they are convinced it's true, and they are convinced to such a high degree of confidence that it would be worldview altering to discover it was wrong. So when I say, I know the moon is there, I'm not just saying I'm familiar with the claim that the moon is there. I'm saying I have knowledge, though not certainty, that the moon is there. Just like I have knowledge, but not certainty, that the reality I experience is real. I have no solution to the problem of hard solipsism, and neither does anybody else. You are in miles over your head, and when somebody says we've been to the moon, and you reply instantly with that doesn't prove it's there, you look like a buffoon. Now you may speak.
I don't think we're really saying that much different, to be honest. We're using slightly different terminologies, but we're really not saying that much different. Really, like the statements that you said, I agree. I agree with how you presented.
Was the moon split? Was the moon split?
I believe it was split. Yes.
I don't care
like
what you believe.
You said you have,
is there evidence that the moon was split?
Only revelatory. not
Then
empirical.
it doesn't count because
I have so many questions.
anyone can claim that they got a revelation. You got a revelation about this. Joe got a revelation about that. Competing revelations, inconsistent revelations, is one of the strongest arguments against the concept of a God. Meanwhile, the moon is an actual physical location which we have been to, and we know that it exists. And there is no evidence that the moon was split. There is only your storybook, and your storybook has just as much evidence that the moon was split as the Casper the Ghost movie has that Casper is real.
It's really not. Look, you said something. You said a bunch of things. And it's hard to keep up. So if you can just hold on, I want to address one of them that you mentioned. You said that the moon, contradictory revelations is a proof or an evidence to God's non-existence or him not existing.
No, I didn't.
That's not what he said.
I said one of the most popular arguments against the existence of God is the argument from inconsistent revelation. That's what I said.
Okay, so that's what you said, right? I don't agree with that. How can you say just because many people claim things?
Oh, stop.
Dude,
when I talk about popular arguments against something and you don't agree with it, tough shit. Go do your research. The most popular arguments against the gods of classical theism are divine hiddenness and inconsistent revelation. Those are typically, generally considered the strongest arguments against the existence of gods. Whether or not you agree you're saying you don't agree that those are the most popular arguments against the existence of God? Well, tough shit.
I'm saying that the argument is not a strong argument at all.
I
not
didn't
even
say
a little
fuck
bit.
all, Rob, I didn't say fuck all about whether or not the argument was strong or whether or not you would be convinced. If you don't listen carefully to what I say, you're going to get bounced around like a fucking chew toy for the rest of the time you're on here. If you'd answer the question that you're asked and addressed what I actually say, rather than what you suspect you can spew forth, this will go much easier. I didn't say the arguments were good. I didn't say they were convincing. I happen to find them very good. As a matter of fact, the argument from divine hiddenness is, I think, the strongest argument against God. If you don't agree, I don't give a fuck. I think the argument from inconsistent revelation is an incredibly strong argument against some gods. If you don't agree, I don't give a fuck. That wasn't the point. The point was there are competing revelations, and there is no path, and you have given no path for any of us to verify which of several competing revelations is true. And when you say that your evidence for the moon being split is revelation, you're saying it has been privately revealed that the moon was split, and that's all the evidence we have, which could also be true of someone saying it's been privately revealed that the moon was not split. And you know what they have that you don't have? Physical evidence to go along with the suggestion that the moon was not actually split. You don't understand that.
I was trying to respond.
I have several questions.
Okay. Oh, okay. Before you say that, there were a number of straw men for the Islamic position and theistic position. But honestly, that is something you...
Okay, I'm going to mute you again. Because there were no straw men presented about Islam. I asked you questions about what the Quran said. I did not make an argument against Islam or the Quran. Therefore, there cannot be a straw man. If you are not ready to have any sort of discussion about this, because even when I'm speaking in the abstract about the nature of evidence and the limits of evidence, you think I'm talking about Islam, but I didn't say anything about it.
Okay, can I speak? You mentioned
actually,
Okay.
It's Forrest's turn.
Okay.
I have different questions. I have totally different questions. Is like, this is the thing, Rob, is it's so incredibly frustrating when you call in and make so many contradictory claims in order to try to prop up this idea that revelation, and only the revelation that you like, is good evidence for anything. I have a question for you. You say that Muhammad did split the moon, right? That I'm just repeating, that is what you did say you do believe.
No, God split the moon. That's what I believe.
Okay. I have a question for you. What did God split if we don't know the moon is there?
If we don't know, but we do know. So I don't know how the thought experiment works.
How do you
If
know
we
the moon is there?
Know, how do I know the moon is there? I believe the moon is there. I believe it's
That's
there because
not
I
how
see
you
it
know.
because of.
Wow. What a
that's it.
stupid,
Well, I'm just saying, I believe.
stupid
I said I
answer.
believe.
You
I
know it
can't-
because you believe it.
That's literally it, man. That's literally it. That's what I'm trying to get. The whole thing I've tried to get across to you this entire fucking time is that literally everything you say and everything that you bring to the table is just, I just think so. You don't have any evidence for anything you're saying. You and I have had a fundamental disagreement about what evidence works as evidence or counts as evidence, because at the end of the day, all that matters to you is that your religion says the thing, or at least your interpretation of your religion says the thing, because anybody else can say any other thing ever and say it was revealed to me, it was a miracle, I read it in a book that I really like, any of the other things that you're talking about, and they can mean exactly the same nothing. You have yet to present anything that means anything to anybody except for yourself.
I mentioned this last time. I'm trying not to overtalk, but in order for me to really get the point across, I kind of have to overtalk a little bit. But I mentioned that there are a list of.
It's never going to happen. Also, you are never going to overtalk us on the show, so it's better for you to stop fucking trying.
I don't intend to.
Despite the fact that you seem to think it's essential, you're not the fucking host of this show. You will never win. I can mute you. I can hang. Stop fucking talking when I'm explaining it to you.
I drew God splitting the moon.
Okay.
Check it out.
So there are a number of items that we test revelatory claims with. We don't just say every single claim is exactly the same. We look at them and say, are they delivered through a messenger, for instance? Are they universally applicable, the statements that are made or the instructions that are given? Does it align with human nature? Is it eternal?
Why?
Right? And it's why do we do that?
Why test revelatory claims if revelation is all that matters? Why would you need to test it?
Because you have to prove that it is revelation. If it's not revelation, then it's pointless to even listen to it.
So what is the way that you can tell that it's revelation? So how do you tell that it's revelation? And remember, we've decided that empiricism is not important, right? So, what's the non-empirical way that we can know that revelation is true?
First of all, I never said that empiricism is not important. I never said that. All I'm saying is that revelation is a part of it. Remember,
on the last call, the last time you talked to me, or one of the last time you talked to me, you said that empiricism is one of the kinds of evidence, but you also repeatedly have said that your belief and divine revelation are the most important things. You have repeatedly said that.
Yes, that divine revelation will trump any empirical or any empirical evidence, because that empirical evidence is inductive, and whether it's
right. And this is why I keep trying to get across to you that you're not saying anything that any other religious person from any other religion could say with the exact same vapid, meaningless nonsense to it. Because when Answers in Genesis says, we presuppose that the God of the Bible is real and that the Bible is literally true and divine revelation and it's miraculous and it's internally consistent, all these things. And here we have these revelations from the Bible about what the reality is. And then we'll go ahead and use empiricism and we'll find evidence to believe in the flood, and we'll find evidence to believe that dinosaurs were on the ark, and we'll find evidence for all these things. And then it only matters because this is in our belief system. It's the exact same thing that you are saying.
It's different. I can explain why
basically the
it's
exact
different.
same book. It's just that they have a book about a magical carpenter from Bethlehem and you have a book about a magical pedophile from Mecca. And it's the same fucking thing. You're just saying, I believe it because I want to believe it, and so I'm going to find some reasons to believe it, and that's it. At the end of the day, there's no difference.
I can explain why it's different.
No,
I can explain why it's completely different.
I have questions. We're going to be answering my questions now. I'm going to ask you for the criteria again that you use to determine whether or not something is revelation. And I'm going to write these down. So what's the first one?
Is it revealed through a messenger? one question. So it has to be a messenger that provides that revelation. God doesn't just reveal except through messengers.
Okay.
It has to be universally applicable.
Let's wow.
I've stopped. I'm listening.
The first criteria, because I'm just going to do these two, because it's pointless for it to continue after this. But I have specific questions. Pay attention. If it's revealed through a messenger, what other option could there be other than revealed by a messenger? What other revelation could there be?
I don't believe in any other method, so I'm not sure how to answer that question.
Sure, fine.
Yeah.
So that means when you say one of the criteria is it revealed through a messenger, every claim that could be revelation is going to come from a messenger, correct?
Correct, yes.
And that means that some claims that come from messengers are revelation, and some claims that come from messengers aren't revelation, right?
Claims that come from revelation are some are. Can you just repeat again?
Why is this so difficult? You just said, listen carefully, that claims coming from a messenger might be a revelation, or they might not be a revelation, correct?
Before they're a messenger,
Jesus
before they're a messenger,
Christ.
then it could be. Yeah.
If a claim comes from a messenger, that doesn't mean that it's revelation, does it?
That doesn't mean it's revelation. No, not unless they say it's revelation.
No, just stick with the fucking yes or no. I'm trying to teach you something here. If a claim comes from a messenger, it may be revelation, it may not, correct?
Correct, sort of.
That means that, no, correct is all you have to say. That means that the criteria, is it revealed through a messenger, isn't sufficient to determine if it's revelation or not.
Unless they mention it, and that's why I said it's not just that. There are a number of tests.
I didn't say it was just that. I didn't say it was just, wow. Never mind, Rob is too stupid.
I don't know why you focus on one point. Like
you don't know why I focus on one point. All right, fine. I'm going to mute you and I'm going to explain why I focus on one point. Because I understand reason, logic, and epistemology. Because I understand your fuzzy thinking, your propaganda, and your stupid epistemology that makes you think you can tell when you're getting a revelation from God, even though there is no mechanism by which anyone has ever demonstrated that any message has ever come from a God. You have nothing but your belief. And so you make up criteria like, is it revealed through a messenger? Well, hello, am I a messenger? Am I revealing a message? I think I'm revealing, as a messenger, some comprehensive understanding of epistemology. Whether or not you're getting it, and you're probably not, doesn't matter. I'm still the messenger delivering it. But that doesn't tell you what the source is. The messenger does not affirm the source. So a messenger could come in and convince you that it is that they're revealing something from God, even if they're not revealing something from a God. Your second criteria is that it's universally applicable. But this message of revelation isn't universally applicable. Revelation could have a message that's just for one person. I'm going to reveal to you what I want you to do. That's not universally applicable. You are starting with criteria that is epistemologically insufficient and incapable of demonstrating the very thing you want. And so what ends up happening is you believe X is revelation. You believe the moon was split by God, and you think this was revealed information. But you don't have any way of demonstrating, A, that it's true in reality, or B, that it was in fact revealed and that this message came from a God. All you can do is say, well, here's what the book says about it, but you can't demonstrate that the book is sound epistemology. And as long as you're going to use this flawed epistemology of yours to try to claim that the moon was split in two, despite a complete dearth of any evidence for it, then nobody has good reason to believe your claim. And as long as you're advocating for a prophet, the messenger, a prophet, who's a rapist, a child rapist, you have lost all credibility. You don't understand epistemology, and you don't understand character. What kind of God picks and allows a child rapist to be their messenger?
Such a loaded question, Matt.
It's not a loaded question. It's a very straightforward question. I didn't ask you to provide your Howard fucking Cosell commentary on the question. I'd like you to answer the question. What kind of a God picks a child rapist to be their messenger?
I'm not mad. I just feel bad for you, honestly, because you don't listen to anything. We have
Okay, I'm going to mute you again, and then I'm going to bring you back in. What kind of God picks a child rapist to be his messenger?
I'm not answering that question. It's rude.
Why? Okay, I'll ask you another question. I'll ask you another question.
How old was Muhammad's second wife when they had sex?
I'll ask you another question. Was Muhammad a child rapist?
Absolutely not. And as a secular humanist,
did he marry,
you should
did he
want to be
marry a
respectful.
6-year-old and consummate their marriage at the age of 9?
Yes, that is true.
And he was a child rapist, and you should be embarrassed for lying about it.
That's your definition.
No, it's the fucking definition. It's child rape. You child rape apologist. You are vile and disgusting and stupid beyond measure. I weep for
Matt,
you.
Your fans
and your
are clapping
family.
for you, but God is not happy.
God, there is no God to be happy, you dumb motherfucker. How sad that you think there's a God on your side and he's not happy with me while I call out your prophet for being the child rapist that he was. And you've acknowledged that he married a 6-year-old, consummated with a 9-year-old, but you don't think that's child rape. I weep for your children and any children that you are in line to protect. You disgusting, vile, stupid, immoral person. Goodbye.
That's it, man. If your God is real, fuck your God. I want nothing to do with your fucking evil God. Absolutely not. It's also important to point out after that, especially after that call, just so everybody knows, 54% of adults in the United States have a below 6th grade level reading ability. Illiteracy is a serious problem in the United States. 21 adults in the United States are actually illiterate. So help donate to education campaigns so that people can learn to read and hopefully eventually learn to understand how critical thinking works and how to read their own book, which talks about having sex with children and why that's not a cool thing.
It's wild that you see what happens. Somebody realizes that the religion they've bought into doesn't have sufficient empirical evidence to support its claims, and that it has claims and moral positions that other people are going to find objectionable. So they invent revelation and pretend that it's reliable. And they invent a bunch of excuses and try to redefine things instead of acknowledging that if the story was true, the infinitely wise, knowing, and moral being decided to pick someone who would marry a 6-year-old and consummate that marriage at 9 to be his representative. And once you buy into that, and you buy into jinns and evil spirits, then it's really easy for you to believe that the moon was splitting too, and that you are reasonable for believing it through revelation. Well, I got a revelation for you. The moon wasn't split in two. There's not only no evidence for it, it's inconsistent with the facts of reality. And for you Bible believers who think you're on better footing, the moon didn't stand still in the sky either. The facts are These ancient books were written by ignorant individuals trying to write down their history and trying to make the best understanding of the world available. And they were potentially, not much, but potentially even more uninformed than our caller was. And those people, while they might have tried to do good, have set up a system that you don't have to keep making excuses for. You don't have to call into a show and look like you're so stupid that you think the moon was split in two. You don't have to call into a show and, oh, I pity you because God is upset with you and you're not listening because you're going to say these terribly offensive things. Offensive things? How is it offensive to call a child rapist a child rape? Well, it wasn't a child rape. I'm done with your excuses, just like I'm done with Daniel Hakikachu's excuses for why he's willing to marry 4-year-olds and have sex with them.
That's the whole thing, man. If your moral high ground involves it's okay to fuck kids, you don't have a moral high ground. It's just, it's so gross. And that's why it always tends to go in that direction. Where literally, this is the third or fourth, I think it's the second or third time I've talked to Rob. And the whole fucking argument, the whole fucking call is always, I believe it, therefore it's true. And we're like, you could believe anything and that doesn't make it true. Well, that's different because this is what I believe. And that means it's true. And it's that for a fucking hour. And then we get to this point where, what is evidence? Why does evidence matter? I never said evidence doesn't matter, but why does it matter? It just that for a fucking hour. And all the while we're sitting on the fucking reality that this dude believes in a guy that fucked a fucking 9-year-old and thinks that's this moral thing, that it's this noble, honorable goodness.
There's another thing. There was a question I was going to ask that we didn't get to because we can't. But here's the thing. Make a list of whatever criteria you want for how you confirm revelation. We'll just go with the two that you listed. It's revealed through a messenger and it's universally applicable. How do you know that those two things are reliable criteria for determining if something is revelation? See, the tools that we use in science and in reason, we use because they consistently prove to provide reliable results that are independently verifiable. If Forrest tells me that he went into the lab and he mixed X amount of this chemical with X amount of this chemical and got this particular reaction, I can then go into the lab and do that same thing. And if I get the same results, then we have independently verified what his results are. But we're not done that because you need more and more data. But if I get a different result, then Forrest and I, one of us or both of us now have a problem because now we've got inconsistent results. And so now we need to investigate. Hey, when you mix these together, did you shake them up or did you stir them? Because that might make a difference. Are we sure we got the labels right? And so what we do is we test those things. The entire history of humanity has been an explorative process where our curiosity and our ignorance are what drive us to do more and more testing. We didn't get to an internet where we're speaking to you through the airwaves by getting revelation. There's not a single scientific principle, claim, model, or theory that has ever been disproven by some non-scientific thing. The only thing that corrects scientific understanding is more science. And the scientific methods have demonstrated to be the most consistently reliable path to an accurate model of reality that we have. Not absolute certainty. Science doesn't make proclamations of truth. Science uses inductive reasoning to come up with models that are the best current explanation for all of the available data. That's how we built this world. We did not build this world with any revelation from any God. We did not build this world by saying, oh, my holy book says the moon is split. Therefore, whether there's empirical evidence for it or not, I believe the moon was split. We built this world not by saying, We have found a perfect path to absolute certainty, and we will therefore use it as we move forward in this world, and that's how we know that water is H2O. No. A lot of people did a lot of work, and they did reliable, well-documented, measured work that was independently reproduced and verified by others. The goal of science is to say, here's what I think reality is. Is the evidence sufficient for that, or is there a way to disprove this? Which is why falsifiability is a key aspect. Falsifiability, peer review, all those things, but falsifiability. There's nothing falsifiable about revelation. Revelation is necessarily first person, a la Hume, and to everybody else, revelation is hearsay. Hearsay is useless. Forrest, she turned me into a newt. She must be a witch. It's been privately revealed to me that she's a witch. And that it's okay for me to marry 5-year-olds.
I was going to say, I actually have some divine revelation here that refutes Rob's claims. And I figured this is an important revelation to get out there into the world. This is a divine scripture, official edict of the Line Network that we all believe in. Maybe Rob should take notes.
It's just beyond bizarre to me that, I thought, because you had, you teed that entire call up as, hey, Rob and I have had conversations, they're not going too well. Let's see if he does better with Matt. We get to talk just briefly about the nature of evidence. And then it is a wandering, meandering path of festering putrescence, of confusion, of yes, but oh, yeah, it's a revelation, and I know it's a revelation because it came from a messenger and it's universally applicable, and list whatever criteria you have. You have no way of showing that those are the right criteria because you still haven't demonstrated ever in the history of the world, ever, that any message has come from a god. You might as well be saying you're getting messages from aliens. That is plenty plausible. We've done the Drake equation. I don't think aliens are visiting Earth. I think the numbers are incredibly too low for that. And I don't know how many of them are out there or how many of them blew themselves up or just, blah, blah, blah. But the notion that an alien could be sending you a message doesn't seem to be any less likely than that a God's sending you a message. And so I just did a video on my channel. It's not available to everybody yet. Otherwise, I would have given it out so that Ron could go look at it. It's about the notion of inconsistent revelation a little bit. And that is, imagine for a second that I started getting messages in my brain in a language that I don't speak and that I don't read and that I don't understand. And so I get messages, we'll just say in Greek, and I don't know what they're saying, but I jot them down. And I can communicate seemingly with wherever these messages are coming. I can say, can you repeat that? And the voice in my head repeats it again. And I write down those messages. And then I take them to somebody who knows Greek. And I show them those messages and they start to translate them. So now, whoever's sending the message, I don't know what the message is, but somebody's able to translate it. And if we find, let's say that Forrest is also hearing a voice in his head and it's sending him those same messages, and Forrest and I are sitting in different rooms, and you guys ask both of us, hey, what does the voice say the answer to this question is? And both of us relay the same answer in a language we don't know. Wow, that's fairly strong evidence that Forrest and I are getting a message from something. Problem is, you have no idea if we're lying about whether or not we understand Greek. That's why you put us separately, because now it doesn't matter if we understand Greek. We don't know what you're asking, either of us. And so the fact that we're getting that answer from somebody else, but you also can't rule out advanced technology. You can't rule out aliens that have found some way to tap into your head. So even if you confirm that there's a phenomenon, how do you tie that phenomenon to a God? How do you know it's God giving you a message? It's not aliens, or not somebody with a time machine, or a memory, or maybe you're hopping through multiverses and you're remembering something somebody else said. You can't prove that we don't know the languages. You can't prove any of this. And so the best you can do is say, we have pretty strong evidence that these two are getting messages. We don't know where the messages are coming from. And that's all completely independent from whether or not those messages are correct and accurate. That's the problem. And even under that scenario, we wouldn't be able to confirm that we were getting messages from God, but we would be orders of magnitude closer to considering that's plausible. And you know what? That scenario never happens.
Not true. I just want to point out the getting messages in a language you don't understand, and then you translate them and find out that they're real and that they mean some things. That's what Joseph Smith did. Matt's a Mormon confirmed. The whole show is now Mormonism. That's what it's all about, y'all. Now we have divine revelation. And Rob needs to know that Mormonism is real.
My apologies, but Forrest is completely wrong. In the video, I actually referenced Joseph Smith on this because Joseph Smith wasn't getting messages that he couldn't translate. Joseph Smith was the translator. Joseph Smith was using a seer stone in a hat to look at this.
Semantics.
So, no, the difference is, and this was key. This is what I didn't talk about here tonight, but this is key to the video. And that is, you don't know whether or not I understand the language Greek, but I do. And if I know that I don't understand Greek and I'm getting messages that you're translating into Greek, even though you don't know if I'm faking it, I know I'm not, which means now I have incredibly strong evidence that I'm getting messages from someone else who understands a language I don't. That's the part I hadn't put in yet.
There you go. There you go.
And then I'd be a Mormon.
Hey, there's a shirt. Check out that shirt, y'all. You can buy that for another few hours or don't. I'm not a cop, but like you probably should if you want. That's
a lie. Forrest is a cop. He's gonna arrest you if you don't go buy the shirt. It's only available till midnight, so you better do it.
Say it.
Yo, I've been insulted in a lot of ways this week. No one has had the fucking audacity to call me a cop. How dare you?
You're the one that brought up the FBI. Harsh.
I'm on the run. Tommy Valkai will never be brought in by the FBI. They'll never catch Tommy Valkai. That's another bit from another thing. I've got this fucking guy who's stalking me on Instagram claiming that I'm on the run from the FBI. That's why I changed my name. And that also different story is when we were in the Galapagos, in order to get on a ferry to the next island we had to get to, we just took someone else's tickets that didn't show up, and they've got a person there checking your names to make sure that enough people got on the thing. So we had to pretend that my name was Tommy for a while to get through the thing, that because I bought this guy's ticket that wasn't there. And so Tommy Valkai on the run. The FBI will never catch me is becoming this. I'm loving how much it's becoming a thing.
So there's a little. Here we are. I mean, you've been doing this for almost 8 hours straight. And we don't have any more calls. We're going to wrap up here in just a second, and we don't do super chats here. But Forrest has been here for like 8 hours doing this. I've been here for just less than 3. But the Shuck the Fudd Up shirt is only going to be available, my understanding, until midnight. Kind of a limited edition thing. Now there's a couple thousand people watching right now. And I'm pretty sure that there aren't 2,000 of the 2,200 that actually need the shirt, but probably about 1,500 of you really need this shirt.
Yeah.
And so I just want to make sure that you guys are aware this is your last chance. But if you don't like that shirt, you can go over to linemerch.com and take a look at what's around there. Here's the weird thing. I genuinely would like to know, if you're a theist, and you're going to make, you want to have the sort of discussion that we have with theists, but you want it to be better. What do you imagine happens when you tell a couple of skeptics that they're wrong about skepticism, tell a couple of atheist skeptics that they're wrong about atheism and the atheist label, and then say that your evidence for all of this is revelation? Like, it's been privately revealed to me, Forrest, that you're wrong about what atheism is and what skepticism is and what science is and what biology is.
Oh no!
It's all been revealed. I got it from a messenger, and it's universally applicable because Forrest's wrong in every conceivable way. Forrest is fractally wrong. Forrest suffers from fractal wrongness. He's wrong at every conceivable resolution. It's been revealed to me.
Cancer. of the mind of the wrongness.
It's just wild to me that, I come in every week, and I'll keep coming in, and I'm coming in with good faith. And I would like to, I would have loved to have had a conversation about evidence, and because a lot of people are like, well, you just say there's not sufficient evidence. So how do you know what sufficient evidence is? Oh, that's cool. But first we started with, what is evidence? Evidence is, broadly speaking, facts consistent with a hypothesis. Or better yet, because you may not have a hypothesis because it may not be falsifiable, facts consistent with a proposition. So you've proposed that something is the way it is. I'm going to propose that the moon was previously split in half. Now, what are the facts that are consistent with that? Well, there's not any empirical evidence for it. And the sort of empirical evidence we would expect were the moon to be split, things like, I don't know, some sort of appearance of the moon as split and some sort of things potentially floating around, and a fundamental change to the moon's orbit as it begins to decay and split in half, and a mission from the United States government to put people on the moon in order to blow it up with nuclear weapons so that it goes around the Earth like the asteroid and Armageddon. We don't have any of that evidence. And so because they need to believe that the moon was split, it's been revealed. Cool. Forrest, it's been revealed to me that we don't have any more callers. And the evidence for that is when I logged into vMix, there weren't callers left. And so it's been revealed to me that
vMix is real.
I don't.
How do you know?
It's been revealed to me that it's 9:51 Central on November 3rd. And because it's been revealed to me, it must be true.
Yep.
Which means right. Doesn't matter what time zone you're in, it's 9:51.
That's what it is. And I've got 22 pages of the new Sex and Sensibility video written. And so I'm going to stay up until probably about 2 a.m. writing more of that and editing it down and making it better and better. So expect that coming out in December, because that'll be a thing. And also the next Reacteria about that guy, Eric Ovend, and the next Anson Genesis movie. I'm going to try to make that in December as well. So you can expect those two videos. It's going to be great. And in November, the month that we are currently in, I'm going to try to get the Galapagos video done. So I've got a lot of shit to start.
Eric tried to get me to debate him. Eric tried to get me to debate him after the Sci-10 Prugenkate debate. And I turned it down because the thing is, Sci is a presuppositionalist, and Eric's dad, Kenthoven, is an evidentialist. And Eric tried to be both. And his flawed understanding of both of them was so bad that he thought he could kind of merge them. And so it's like, first of all, I don't see any point in debating presuppositionalists anymore, because if you're going to presuppose God, then there's no debate. It'd be like, if I presuppose that identity, non-contradiction, excluded middle are reliable and true, we can't debate it, because not only have I presupposed it, but you would have to also presuppose it in order to make any argument that they were true or not true, or reliable or not reliable. You'd have to assume them in order to try and prove them. That's why we use those as presuppositions. Presuppositions need to be driven out of necessity and gaps in reason itself. You don't get to just presuppose something because, well, I think there needs to be a grounding for logic and I can't think of one. So I'm going to presuppose there's a God and just say that God is the grounding for logic or morality or whatever else you want. Because the reality might be that there is no and need be no grounding for logic or morality.
I like what that shirt's doing. I like what's going on.
I do too. I think Arden's just playing, and she's probably sitting there going, "Look, why is Matt and Forrest just vamping?"
I was really
instead
hoping
of finishing the show.
She kept putting more merch on the screen.
Put 2 copies up and cover both of our heads.
I was really hoping that just
so.
slowly over the course of the next few minutes, she would just put more and more and more merch on the screen to just cover us up.
All right. I'm not going to put together any other soliloquies or any other thing like that tonight. Forrest, explain to everybody It's now Sunday evening. We're in the United States. We are 2 days from Election Day. I'm going to spend all day tomorrow working on rodent stuff with Arden. And then Tuesday is going to be, I'm about to cry. This is wild because I'm actually in a pretty good mood altogether. I mean, although the callers are frustrating, but merely thinking about the election on Tuesday has absolutely, like, I'm finding it overwhelming. And so I'm glad that this right here is my last show before the election.
It's not mine.
Hope. I know you got to do. I
got Skeptalk tomorrow. Me and
Tomorrow,
Josie gonna kill it.
So tune in for Josie and Forrest on Skeptalk.
Motherfuckers get 8 more hours of me.
I said this is my last show before the election, but we're doing an election show. Arden.
Yeah.
Instead of just playing around with the shirts, do we have any details? Do we have any details on Tuesday's election coverage?
Well, first of all, I resent that. I am advertising our merch that is only available until midnight Pacific time tonight. But yes, the show is going to start at 6 p.m. Central time. There's going to be a bunch of us, but we're also going to try to keep it relatively low key because the odds of us getting a result on Tuesday night are pretty low. So we're probably going to try to have fun and do like some games or something and not just sit there and all anxiously, miserably watch every single little update in the polls.
Can you put a quick poll up?
Okay, sure.
There's still a couple thousand people here. So just for the people, like the poll should be, would you guys be okay if Matt was high as fuck on election night?
Done.
Okay. You guys get to vote on that. It may or may not impact what I decide to do or not do.
That's the vote that really matters in this country.
It's I saw it. It looks like the vote's at 95%, 100%, 96%, 95.
5% of our viewers are fucking narcs. What's going on? Oh, there's 4%.
Hey, while you're there buying
I'm not doing anything illegal.
While you're there buying your Shuck the Fut Up merch, also, we have our chewed gum merch. You can get these thick hoodies. They're finally going out. Mine's supposed to get here tomorrow. Your Don't Apologize to Him. #Dath in the chat. Our chewed gum branded stuff. Yeah. And, of course, your Shuck the Fut Up. So go get shit. Give us money. You haven't done enough.
Yeah. But also make sure you come back tomorrow night for Skeptalk, and Tuesday at 6 p.m. instead of chewed gum, we will be here doing election coverage.
How dare
and like I genuinely am so overwhelmed at the prospect of what could potentially happen on Tuesday. There's only one thing in my life that's given me like more anxiety than this, and I'm not going to go into that because it doesn't matter right now. But look, take care of each other. Take care of yourselves. Thanks everybody for hanging out for an incredibly long Sunday. That was at times incredibly fun, and at times made me want to quit the show, but I won't.
It certainly was a show. This will go down in history as one of the shows of all time, and no one can ever deny that. Thanks so much for tuning in. Thanks so much to our mods, our call screeners, our producers, all the hosts, all the people in the chat, even the ones that suck. Thank you so much for all of you for being here. Have an awesome rest of your day and never stop learning. Bye!
I'm working late because I'm a